All right, welcome everyone. We're going to get started this evening. I call the meeting to order. This meeting of the Hopkinen Select Board is being held both in person and remotely using video conference platform Zoom. Select Board member Matt Kisner will be participating remotely, and all of other members of the Select Board should be present for this meeting at Town Hall, room 215, 216 in person. At this time, I will ensure that the Select Board members participating remotely can hear and be heard. Matt, can you hear us?
I can. Are you still blessed with hearing me?
Yes, loud and clear. Perfect. The public has the option of attending in person here at Town Hall or via Zoom using the link posted in this meeting's agenda. This meeting is being recorded. All votes will be taken by roll call. And we are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We are going to start with public forum. So each person will have 2 to 3 minutes to speak at public forum. Please start by stating your name and address. Is there anyone present that would like to start? Is there anyone on Zoom for public forum?
There's one hand on Zoom.
All right.
Bob Keeley.
Did you say Bob?
Bob Keeley.
Hey, can we give access to Bob so that he can speak?
I don't know if you can hear me. I just think I turned my microphone on.
Yes, we can hear you, Bob.
Great. Thanks.
Welcome.
Thanks. Thanks for taking your time. I wanted to advocate for.
Hey, Bob, if you don't mind, name and address for the record, please.
Bob Keeley, 60 Pine Island Road.
Thank you.
On the agenda, it's the item number 7 for the road repairs. I'm requesting that the Select Board approves the funding to repair the road. It's in significant disrepair. In front of my house in the wintertime, it'll freeze into a solid sheet of ice 60 feet long and 3 inches deep. In the summertime, it floods. There are numerous potholes down the road, and it is in desperate need of repair.
Perfect. Thank you, Bob. One last chance if anyone would like to speak to public forum.
There's now a second person on Zoom, Mike McDonald.
Does he have his hand raised?
Yep.
Hi, Mike, can you hear us?
Hi, this is actually Lisa McDonald, Mike's wife, but his name pops up on my Zoom when I use Zoom. Lisa McDonald, 62 Pine Island Road. I just wanted to take a moment and echo my neighbor Bob Keeley's concerns. I had emailed a picture of a significant pothole between 60 and 62 Pine Island. It is 5 inches deep, 30 inches long, and 20 inches wide. So I did send this picture and request to have this pothole filled over to Mike Manzer earlier today so that he has it in his, in his email. This pothole has been patched in the past, but what happens with trucks that come down here is that eventually the asphalt that's put in as a patch does start to decompose over time because it is a patch. But it would be really, really nice if that got filled back up before winter. Because as Bob said, there's a lot of thawing and freezing that happens, and it is because it's on a hill, it is quite treacherous for pedestrians as well as vehicles. We've on more than one occasion used our winch to help UPS trucks get out of this spot when they get stuck. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Anyone else on Zoom, Amy?
No.
Okay. If there's no one else for public forum, welcome.
Karen Crum, 12 Joseph Road. I just wanted to make one last analysis of the legal counsel services that we're considering. Again, I went through last week's analysis also. I made myself a little chart. I'm happy to hand it to you, giving the top 2 choices for each person 1 point. And it came out, KP Law has 4, Harrington Heap 3, Mead, Tallerman, Costa 3. But what surprised me the most is that they're so similar that our counsel that's been with us for longest isn't like by and far like so great that the other ones aren't coming up looking really just as good. They're not blowing them out of the water. So I believe that we've saw some really great firms out there that could really change the current trajectory of our town. The other thing that stood out to me about this process has been Lance pointed out that you're making a decision for the town for a 1-year appointment. Hopefully we won't be in the situation we're currently in to need to review our legal counsel selection again. So I summed up our legal counsel process so far as Hopkinton Select Board conducts interviews and exhaustive discussions for choosing a 1-year legal service contract versus minimal deliberation to end Tim Brennan's 20-plus year career protecting our town. The residents deserve answers. The other things that were concerns were cost of services. I know you have a number in front of you. I don't think you're looking at what a firm might actually save us by avoiding litigations and things of that nature. If we add up what our town is going to be paying out to lawsuits, Harrington Heap is by far the most expensive. The other thing is the redaction policy. You know, Harrington Heap said themselves that they made a mistake. But I feel like they keep putting it on us as they're helping us with our redaction policy. Do we need one? Sure. I think most towns have one, and I've been looking them up. But they cannot blame this on us. They need to understand, and they have said, this was on them. The last thing I'll say is, I was surprised that one of the select board members was questioning why we're even looking at other firms. And I think Matt summed it up quite nicely, saying there was significant frustration, anger, and mistrust in the community about how some of the events have been handled, especially around our police department. These people are all qualified to give us service. Ultimately, the residents have been making it pretty clear that they have some concerns about the services they're receiving, and at least with the redaction policy and some other issues that are known to us from our positions. So I do ask you to take this seriously, take the residents' input to heart, and really think about what will be best for the town moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. One last call for public forum. No one new on the Zoom, correct, Amy?
No more hands up.
Perfect. So we will move on to the consent agenda. So this evening, the Select Board will consider the following consent agenda. Minutes from the September 9th, 2025 meeting, accepting gifts, specifically a donation of $150 from Naga Sai Lakshmi Kakumani to the police department to be used where needed. The Select Board will consider confirming the town manager's appointment of Thomas McGrail, Health Services Agent, and Yamilet Marroquin Rivera, per diem public health nurse. The Select Board will also consider approving a request for $12,000 to fund 8 scholarships of $1,500 each to be awarded to high school graduates who are Hopkinton residents graduating in the spring of 2026. So I will look for anyone want to break anything out or make a motion.
I'd make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. For this, we need roll call, or I guess roll call for everything. Yep. Amy?
Amy Ritterbusch, yes.
Shidul?
Yes.
Brian Herr?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
And Joe Clark, yes. So that is unanimous. Okay. All right, next we are going to move on to our FY27 budget message. This is a joint meeting, so I'd like to welcome the School Committee, Appropriations Committee, and Capital Improvement Committee to join us up here, please. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Everyone get a seat? Perfect. So tonight, this is about more, we're going to develop the budget message together. Elaine, do you want to kind of introduce this and what you think, how we think we should start?
Sure. This is the board's annual budget message before everyone starts working on their budgets. And Kyla Lapierre, CFO, is going to take us through some recommendations.
Thanks, Kyla.
So there are a couple of documents in your packet. One is for the sources and uses that was distributed during last select board meeting that had a 2% increase over FY26 for all departments. Another one is for level service, which was suggested at last week's meeting, but the level service is not the same thing as 2%. And the last one is the preliminary 5-year outlook for fiscal year 27 through 31. Level service has the following assumptions. Expenses for all town, which means non-school departments, will only increase by 2%. And we know that is conservative, given the increase that we're all incurring on a day-to-day basis. Salaries for all town, again, non-school departments, have increased an average of 3.5% because the range for our annual promotion or annual raise was a 3 to 4% increase. And as we heard from Evan and Susan at the last meeting, their average increase for the school since FY20 was 5.9%, and for FY27, they need to include other expenses that have been incurred by the town for the past few years. So their level service increase equates to about 7.6%. So the current FY27 capital plan that has been submitted by the departments, again, it's preliminary. The school is not included in this, has an $8.8 million expense associated with it. We do believe that we will have over $11 million in free cash for FY27 because we have an overage in investment income, $4 million in overlay, and $3 million in insurance and benefits that was not expected. So the town accountant and I have been working together to look at our revenue sources. And for FY27 and beyond, we're coming up with a much more reliable source. Instead of just a percentage increase year over year, we're actually diving into the detail so it becomes much more accurate. That's good and bad. We will have less free cash in the years to come if we have more accurate revenues on our sources and uses, but we'll have better numbers as we go into our budgeting season. We have increased the expected amount in the meals tax revenue based on the receipts for the last 2 quarters. So you'll see that increase to $250. The official capital budgeting process kicked off last Tuesday on the 30th. And all requests are going to be submitted by October 24th. I think it's really important to pay attention to the assumptions on the sources and uses document, especially 2 items. We are assuming that the free cash that we have in the town will be used to pay for all capital expenses, including stabilization and OPEB. And we are not currently planning on any new borrowing for FY27 other than what's already projected for the school projects already approved. The last page in the packet is the 5-year outlook, which is based on the 5-year capital plan, which was submitted in FY26. Again, this 5-year outlook does not have any additional debt being borrowed. And it also has an assumption of $8 million in free cash year over year. You'll see the deficits that are projected over the next couple of years. I included that in the packet so you see the deficits. The planning for FY27 is going to be critically important on how to set us up for the following years.
Thank you, Kyla. Would school committee like to start?
Sure.
Thoughts?
I need to call my meeting to order.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Of course.
Could I have a motion
I move to call the meeting to order.
in a second? Great. We call the meeting of October 7th, the school committee, to order. Can we have a vote? Ms. Ronka?
Yes.
Ms. Richards Kavanaugh? Yes. And I'm a yes. We're all set. Thank you. So the one thing that we really wanted to press forward in this meeting is the special education reserve that is now been taken outside, or you can explain it better, but it's been separated for the budget, and that's now coming into our budget. So that's going to show a big increase the way that it's coming in and sitting into the budget that are there. We just want to call attention to that, make sure everyone's aware that that's happening, and that's not a school increase in spending. It's the same amount of spending. It's just put in a different place.
So just to refresh everyone's memory, the Special Education Reserve Fund has been funded from free cash for the past few years. The Special Education Reserve Fund was created in 2022, and the town approved the reserve fund for unknown expenditures. We know what the school is using the fund for, so we have to do what's right by the approved motion, and we have to put it in an operating budget.
Through the chair, how much was that?
$1 million, roughly.
Joe,
1,115,600. Thank you.
sorry, a quick clarifier if I can.
Yep.
Is that number increase coming into your budget reflected in the 7.x% that was noted as the anticipated level service increase?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. From the board, any additional questions for the school committee? Okay.
I'll go, sorry. I have a couple quickies on this topic. First, to everybody, both on the board in person and the constituents, my apologies for not being there. I'm recovering from some health stuff, so I'm also going to stay off camera. You're missing my beautiful face. A couple quick questions and thoughts. So to Kyla LaPierre, I do want to quickly note that while it's nice that more accurate reporting up front will reduce free cash, I also think it's important to highlight that that means that we're taxing less up front overall, because we're going to know how much we need. So yes, less free cash year over year, but as a taxpayer, I want you to hear that as I'm going to ask for a little less money from you. I think that's an important note. I do want to suggest to the school committee in particular, but to other departments who may be listening as well, because of where we are in terms of the projected shortfall, I'd really love to be having a risk-based conversation with you this budget cycle about what's some known stuff in the next year or two, because we know the next year or two are going to be a lot worse. Do you have like an air handler coming due and you're going to ask us for it next year? We know we're going to say yes. Maybe we should have a strategic conversation where the conversation is easier to have this year, where it may be more painful in years to come. And I'm just pulling that as an example out of thin air, by the way. But just to try and be a little bit solutions-oriented and strategic around the capital planning process to all of us. But on the flip side, and this is my last quick thought, we probably do need to start having a conversation. And again, this is not just aimed at the schools, nor is it for the schools. I hear Kyla LaPierre telling us essentially that we are not sustainable right now. Our expenditure versus our tax and our sources of income is coming to a point of known deficit, especially with our anticipated capital expenses for MWRA and other things. I think while we don't need to have the hardest version of that conversation this year, it would behoove the departments to start thinking about what would it look like? How do we start thinking about what a smaller budget might look like? And I don't want that to start with people. Maybe it starts with services, and I don't love that that's where it is either, but we may find ourselves in that position. And the more planning we do up front and the more practical we are about that, the less painful it's going to be if we find ourselves there. That's my time. Thank you.
Can I respond to the capital planning? Anybody who would like to attend the school committee meeting on Thursday evening at 7 o'clock, Mrs. Rothermich will present our capital plan that goes out for 5 years, I believe, 5 years, and gives accurate figures to what we're looking at for the next time. So we've done that planning.
Yeah, I did have a question about the Special Education Reserve Fund is a little confusing to me. We didn't used to have one, and we've had one for a few years. And so now we know what we spend on, you're moving it, for FY26, it's moved into the operating budget. But going forward, we're not going to put it into a special fund anymore?
It's going to be part of the operating budget.
Okay. I thought the purpose of putting it in the special fund was that, because it was used for like the out-of-district students, and which that number is not always predictable. Is that correct? In some years, we might need to use it. We might have more or less out-of-district students. So if we didn't use it all, it could be saved for the next year, although we've always used it all. So what is the reason for moving it to operating?
The motion that was approved in 2022, it was a reserve fund is for unknown operating expenses.
Okay.
So it was to be used if there was a unknown expense for books or something like that. Since we know we're going to use it for tuition or out-of-state.
Special education
Yeah.
services.
We know what we're going to use it for. We have to take it out of the reserve fund.
Right, that's why we're taking it out, but we're not going to refund it anymore. Is that what we're saying?
We're not going to fund it from free cash.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we could, okay, so we could fund the reserve fund from operating budget?
Yep.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
We're just talking schools right now, right?
Correct, yeah.
General.
Well, school committee, talked about there, so
Yeah,
we're
I'm
just.
good, I'm good with schools at this point. Thanks. But I have some other just general stuff.
Yep.
When you're ready.
Okay. I don't have any questions, Shadul, right now.
I just have a couple clarification. One is, what are we anticipating for contractual obligation in terms of percentage this year? Do we know kind of?
Percentage? Do we know that?
Yeah, I know Ms. Rothermich talked about it last time, but I think I don't want to give you the number that, I don't have the number right now in front of me, but I know it's an increase because of the contract negotiations that we went through. So I want to say it's upwards of 3% or higher with the contracts.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can give you an accurate number.
Sure, that would be helpful, because contractual obligation is something that we have to do, and that actually takes away from the pot. So even though the overall looks a little higher, or more than 2%, it's actually a majority goes to the contractual obligations. Just wanted to point that out. And secondly, I was wondering, and Kyla, thanks for bringing that up, that this is an aberration from the town warrant. But I'm wondering, that is going to be the practice going forward? Because my little worry is that all the previous years, we've been doing it in one way, and doing it certainly differently could make it a little more difficult to make apples-to-apples comparison trend and all those that we constantly analyze to optimize our budget. Or would it be an easier path to have a special warrant added, which would legitimize that the way we are doing the accounting practices? I'm not an expert in accounting or finance, so but in these budgetings.
The Special Reserve Fund is not intended to be used the way we're using it, and it's actually against what DOR recommends.
I see. And a follow-up is, in that case, the previous years we were out of compliance. Is that something we need to rectify?
No, as long as we clean it up going forward.
Okay, that makes it, I think, clear on that front. And last one is, I think for last few years, we have been analyzing what is our projected cost in terms of debt, upcoming approved. One was projected debt with approved debt, and one was projected with unapproved but potential ones, including school, which kept us kind of on our toes to see what our taxes are going to be and all that. And I am anticipating we are continuing to update those to see that picture as well.
Your 5-year plan has those projected debt amounts.
Sure, and when we come to that capital budget discussion, it would be interesting to see if that has changed from our baseline assumptions, in a positive direction, or there's been a little bit of gain in some ways, that I think would be another measure that we could look at overall. Because we want to manage the budget and also make sure the service levels are continues to provide the excellence that we all expect. It's a tight rope, but we want to make sure. Thank you. Nothing else.
Perfect. Thank you. Like to hear from CIC next, or appropriations? Sorry.
We've opened our meeting. Thanks.
Yep.
Mike, you want to start off? Do you have any questions?
I just barely read through Kyla's thing because of work and stuff, so I'll defer to my teammates.
Okay. Mike?
Yeah, the budget message, I'm just looking at this for the first time, and an interesting observation was our debt payments that you're expecting for the year. That last year when we did our modeling, it was going to go from like 12 million to 13 million. I see this year it's down 11 million. Is that because of the new expectations on the cost of?
We were able to borrow short-term, which was, we didn't know if we could do that with the amount of money that we needed to borrow, so we were borrowing at short-term, which is a lower interest rate and lower principal payment.
That's good. The other thing is the cash, free cash, and saying for capital projects. You already have a list of the capital projects.
I met with all the department heads in advance of the formal requests being sent out on the 30th. So the 8.8 is relatively good, given all of the time that we spent over the summer formalizing that, doing that proposal. Yes.
But it could be less.
I don't have the schools included in that yet, so it could be more. We haven't.
Actually, Kyle, I had one question on free cash. You mentioned the number of 11 million. Was that expected new free cash? I know we transferred some into free cash last year. Is that the overall balance, or?
I believe it will be over 11 million for 27.
The last years we put in stabilization.
Oh, yeah, we moved free cash into stabilization. All right, thanks.
Quick follow-up. Oh, sorry. Quick follow-up question. I've noticed the employee benefits are projected to be 10% increase. Is that too high, reasonable?
At this point, we don't know. So it's expected that it's going to continue to go up. I think we'll have more clarity in the coming months, but that's an estimate based on this year.
Yeah. What was it last year?
11.3.
Okay, but that was kind of renegotiation, right? So
I'm sorry?
there was a renegotiation point, or do we expect it every year?
Is it renegotiated every year?
Health and other insurance, no, not necessarily.
It was natural 11%? Okay.
I think there's obviously a lot that's going to change as we go forward, so I don't want to get really deep into the details, but I do want to note there's a big difference between 2% and level services, and so that's really where the work is going to need to be done. And I guess as we look forward to all of that work, what's our vulnerability regarding federal funding, and how precariously are these numbers predicated on your currently best guess?
I can speak for the town side, and Lee, you can speak for the school side. So for the town side, there are a few departments that rely on federal funding. It's not, I don't consider it significant, but there are a few departments that we'll keep close watch on. Yep.
I believe ours was around 500,000 that we received from the federal government. It's not insignificant.
Done?
Yes, thank you.
A couple of thoughts, and then Mike, you say you may have something after all. I think I want to keep this at 30,000-foot view, and I think that's the purpose of this meeting. And I so appreciate all the work the CFO and the team has done here to make it easier to adjust here. And when I look at the current deficit at 2.7 million, although it's not insignificant, it's probably manageable because we've dealt with numbers like this before. But in 12 months from now, we're going to be sitting here talking about a $13 million deficit. And I'm wondering, kind of echoing Matt's thoughts earlier, is it not too early to start, even this year, getting even tighter so that we don't have a $13 million deficit a year from now? Meaning, is there any appetite, has there been any discussions to have level funded instead of level services for this fiscal year? And or something in the middle, kind of where Gene was going, so that we are starting to chip away at what looks to be a 4 times larger deficit a year from now. I'm just very concerned we're going to solve this issue, find $2.5 million somewhere, and feel like, oh, we did a great job. And we're ignoring what is coming. It's not a hypothesis, it is coming. So I'm just wondering if we can be a little bit more aggressive on this budget so that we can start chipping away at what's coming in 12 months.
I think that's fair. One sec. Elaine, do I need to open the public hearing and continue it? 6:30?
Yes.
All right, so everyone sit tight. I'm going to open the public hearing.
If you don't mind, Mike did say you had a question.
Yeah, we're going to come back to everyone. I just need to open this, and then we'll continue it and come back to this conversation. So, seeing as the time is now past 6:30, we shall open the scheduled public hearing with the reading of the posted notice. The Hopkinton Select Board will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, October 7th at 6:30 p.m. pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 140, Section 9, to consider whether the common victular license of Crust & Co. Pizza and More, Ryan Dion as manager, shall be revoked, suspended, or a fine issued in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 140, Section 9, and other relevant provisions of said Chapter 140 for conducting business without a license on or about September 18, 2025. Crust & Co. Pizza and More is located at 77 West Main Street, Hopkinton, Mass. The Select Board may consider any of these remedies provided for in the statute if there is a finding that the business has been conducted in an improper manner. The public hearing will be held at Hopkinton Town Hall, 18 Main Street, Hopkinton, Mass. on the second floor in room 215, 216. Hopkinton Town Hall is handicap accessible. Do I need a motion to continue this? Or just, all right, so we will continue this and we can go back to our conversation.
And it's continued to
And for the public hearing, we'll come back to that after this conversation concludes.
Mike, you said.
Concerning the deficit, and I don't know if you have the numbers here, but with the increased tax rate over the next few years for the school that we built, that increase in tax within the town of the homeowners, is that going to be enough to help reduce the possible deficit?
No, the levy and the 2% increase year over year is included in the forecast.
Okay. Open up to the board.
Follow on to Mike's question, but there's $1 million variance in that, Kyla, I think, in that, under sources of funds, we're going from 12 million to 10 million, right, year over year. So we're going down, which to me is a little odd in itself, in that we're trying to tax to get ready for all this coming at us. But then in the use of funds, it's a $1 million variance downward. So it's
On the, what page?
either under 2% or level services. So in sources of funds, right up top, it goes from 12 to 9, or 10. Let's go from 12 to 10
Yep.
in the next
In the
fiscal year, right,
Yep.
on the debt line, right? And then dropping down to the sources, or the uses rather, we're going from 12.8 to 10.9, so 13 to 11.
Yep.
So 2 there. Okay, that does line up. I'm sorry. That does line up. Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
One quick follow-up. So I take Bill's concern into account. I think that's all of our concern, and that's why the projection and the model will help us understand the reality even stronger, I think. So it's definitely would be a good practice, which we have been trying to. Last year, we didn't do any net new debt, which was an achievement. We will continue to focus on that and see how much we can try to save or be more conservative for the future. One thing I noticed, Kyla, is that the capital article projection next 2 years has gone up by 4 and 5 million respectively. Is that some known items from the current model, or has anything changed? So this year I'm looking at 8, next year 12, following year 13.
Yeah, there's some big projects that are projected. There's an addition to the fire station. There's expansion to the senior center and some condensing units. There's significant roadway improvements that are needed. It's a variety of things.
I see. So that tells me, which I'm glad you have put in here, it's following the model and the projections that we had earlier established, right? So looking at that, which means a lot of these are potentially discretionary in terms of the capital budgets. So that'll play into, some of the conservatism potentially we are looking for, or opportunities we are looking. I'm not saying we may or may not be able to do exactly those, because we do want to do the high priority ones, but that's probably one area where we could start to look at. And the other one is, I think it'll be good to baseline the numbers as to where do we stand in terms of our stabilization funds in all the stabilizations and OPEB.
Yeah, we're in good standing with both stabilization and OPEB. We're meeting our requirements on both and following our policy.
Thank you. Do you have the numbers, percentage and total wise?
I don't have them with me, no, but I can get them to you.
That would be very helpful. Thank you.
Amy?
Yeah, I was going to say, I do appreciate Bill's point, but I do still think our best message should be level services, and only going down if there was less of a need in town for services. I guess if the school population was dropping, I understand we might drop that, or if, I don't know, if our DPW had less needs, I'd understand reducing it, but I don't think we're at that point yet. I think we still need to be at level services for the residents. So it would not be, yeah, I don't know if this is the year for cutting right now. But we can see as we progress through the season.
Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Bill, thank you so much. I was hoping somebody else besides me was going to make that point, and I desperately appreciate that you did. I want to push back a little bit, Amy, on the language of cutting. To me, level funding is not inherently a cut. It is representing previous services rendered, and if there's been a change in the financial conditions, well, that's the same as it is in our real life. When we make decisions accordingly, but it isn't inherently a modification or a cut of the services. I am so sensitive to the language that we use here. There's someone who's sitting in that room who once told me how hurtful it was during this conversation that we just refer to it as a cut, as though these are not people with lives and jobs and aspirations and dreams. And so, well, yes, I am going to talk about conservatism and some of the actions that I think may be necessary. I don't want to lose sight of the fact that these are people too. I will be a little more emphatic in terms of what I would like to see. I agree with Amy in the sense that I don't believe that this is necessarily the year that the belt has to be fully tightened, but Bill makes a compelling point. There are some things that we can be doing to tighten up a little this year that might make it a little less painful next year. I think presenting that option and seeing what level funding looks like, having the departments go through that exercise, allowing us to have an informed conversation that we present back to the town, we're ultimately supposed to be making decisions on their behalf. Let's arm ourselves and them with some information. Let's have a conversation at the dinner table about what our finances look like. It's exactly what we do in the Kisner House. It's what I think we should be doing in the Hopkinton House as well.
Thanks, Matt. Elaine and Lance, thoughts on this? Comments?
Nothing to add, no?
Okay. Yeah, so I think, I think a lot was shared, and it is important to start looking ahead. I also recognize this is the first meeting that we're having, right? This just started. Over the next 3 months, this group will be gathering together to go over this. We're going to get into a lot more detail here, and as we look closer and get, go from some projections to, more concrete numbers, we'll be able to dig into these things and figure out what's best for the town. So, with that, I think we're probably good for tonight. I don't think we needed a message. Did we need one tonight?
We have to vote to the budget
Message.
message.
Did we?
I'm sorry, do we?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I would suggest that the board, and this is just the select board that takes this vote, correct?
Yeah.
But I would suggest that the board adopt the budget message as presented by the town manager's office in the packet. It speaks to level services, it speaks to, special circumstances, things that you have to look at. Frankly, it's very similar to last year's budget message. And I think that played out well. We have $11 million in free cash. That's like, it's boomtown stuff. that we need to be very careful with. I think we should think of it as like 5.5 million and put 5.5 million in stabilization and balloon that and draw down on that in coming years. But I think the budget message as presented by the town manager's office seems reasonable.
I would agree, and I think to reaffirm our going-in position is level service and level budget. So keeping fingers crossed, we'll keep other good advice and strategic view in mind, but that would be the right message. And I agree that what Elaine has presented covers our view on this, and I support that.
Amy?
Yeah, I agree with what Elaine has written up in the packet. So a level services budget with a target tax impact of 2.5% or less. And we all understand this can change over the course of the budget process.
Matt, any comments?
I'm not in alignment with that message. While I understand from a fiscal perspective, we may be finding ourselves in a similar position to last year on a spreadsheet. We have heard a rather compelling message from all of the other representatives in the room that this is not last year and that the future ahead of us is not this year either. I don't know why we would message the same. So perhaps I'm the bad apple in the bunch here, but I would be a little bit more comfortable echoing a little bit more conservative and challenging a little bit more around some level funding messaging as well. It doesn't mean we go that way, but if we put out another message of just level services and we shock people with 13 million next year in a deficit, they're going to remind us, and I'm going to remind you.
Okay. So did Brian make a motion?
Yeah. So did you make a motion?
Yeah, so I'll move items 1 through, I guess that's 5, as presented by the town managers for the budget message for FY27.
I second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. This will be roll call. Amy?
Amy Ritterbusch, yes.
Shadul?
Shahidul, yes.
Brian Herr, yes.
Matt?
No.
And Joe Clark, yes. All right, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Again, we will be continuing this conversation. Things can change, but we'll be looking deeper. So I appreciate everyone attending.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Fun sessions ahead.
All right, so next we're going to go back to continue our public hearing. So first, I'm going to walk through the process, and we'll go through that. So as was stated in the notice, the Select Board is holding a public hearing regarding the common vic license for Crust & Co. Pizza and More for opening without a license on or about September 18th, 2025. The board will now hear testimony starting with the town manager, then the owner or restaurant manager, and finally the public. Public comment shall be limited to 2 minutes. The board will then vote to close the public hearing and make a final decision as to whether or not it shall prescribe any of the qualifying remedies as outlined under the applicable legal standard. So at this time, you can come join us. Elaine's going to open this up, though. So.
Thank you. So Crest & Company submitted an application to the Select Board, which it reviewed at a meeting on September 9th. The board voted at that time to approve the licenses, the entertainment and common victual licenses, with the following conditions: that all permits from the Board of Health are issued in advance of the license, and that all required inspections, including electrical, building, fire, and health, are completed and satisfactory before issuing the license. On September 19th, in the morning, our office was informed that Crest & Company had opened on the 17th or 18th. Appears as though it might have been the 17th. This was before the final building inspection had occurred. So the building inspection had not occurred on that morning of the 19th. The fire department had completed its inspection on September 5th, and the Board of Health had issued its permits on the 15th. And so when we learned that the business was open without the Select Board's licenses, I called Mr. Dion and informed him that he could not open to the public until all those inspections were completed and the license was issued. So he agreed that the business would close until that occurred. And it did occur at 11 a.m. Later that morning. All the inspections were completed and the license was issued.
Perfect. Thanks, Elaine. Mr. Dion, welcome back.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. Excuse me. At no time was it my intent to open without my common vic license. I was under the impression that I was cleared to open and the license was moving through the necessary channels. I'm just going to reiterate what Elaine just mentioned, but I conducted a soft opening on Wednesday, September 17th, only after the health department cleared me to open following their inspection on Monday, the 15th. On Tuesday afternoon, I confirmed again with the health department, who checked with the building department and told me I needed a fit-up form. I found this odd as nothing inside the building had changed. I immediately completed the form. 95% of that form did not apply to my business, paid the fee, and scheduled a walkthrough with Chris the following morning prior to opening. During that walkthrough, only a few minor details were noted, and I was not told that I could not proceed with the opening. As Elaine alluded to, on Friday, September 19th at 9:15 a.m., I received a call from her. I immediately contacted Sean at the health department, who confirmed he submitted his paperwork, and Chris from the building department. Chris physically returned for a 1-minute walkthrough and confirmed I was good to go. And again, as Elaine alluded to, at 11:21 the same morning, I received a call back saying I was clear to open. In hindsight, I recognize I should have had the physical license in hand prior to opening, and for that, I sincerely apologize. However, I do want to note that I found the process confusing and unclear at times.
Okay, thank you. So now we're going to move towards public comment. If anyone would like to join us, start with name and address in 2 minutes, please. Yeah, welcome.
I don't know the protocol behind this, so.
Yep.
John Laskowski, 15 Long Drive, Ashland.
Yep. Thanks, John. Yep.
So may I ask questions through the chair or
Yes.
just comment?
Well, it's comments. Yep.
Well, through the chair, I mean, we've discovered some things about, from the past meeting we had with Spanis bringing back his business back into his name. On the 17th of this month, he also has some cash advance loans that appeared on record for receivables at 77 West Main Street. There's a lot of tax liens still on 77 West Main Street, Hiller's Pizza Inc. There's an SBA loan at Hiller's Pizza Inc. And we're just curious how this deal was structured, because those things seem to be hanging out there. Through the chair, that's the question.
Yep. Thank you. Mr. Dion, you're welcome to answer these if you have any information.
I purchased the assets of the business, essentially the furniture, fixtures, and equipment, the interior from Paul Mastriani, the landlord. It is my understanding that a release was signed from the former owner's wife, and that the former lease was terminated. As I said 4 weeks ago at the meeting, I have never met the prior owners. I never had a meeting with them. I never, to my knowledge, exchanged anything with them. It was all done via the landlord of the property.
Okay.
May I ask a question? Yep. So that begs kind of the questions of who really was running this deal from the beginning. So we led this to believe there's a new start. Hiller's Pizza goes away. The income and this flow around this deal goes away, and yet he doesn't do anything with the owner. It goes through the landlord, which we don't know what was agreed to there, because there's also what would I call it, a convenient lease departure for that, giving him lenience for that departure. So it just brings a lot of questions about what kind of deal flow is going on here. It's very odd to us from the coalition that somebody goes in to buy a business and Mr. Dion shows up and the landlord goes, here's your business, and has nothing to do with the previous owner that has the business. So we find that very odd. And we want to make sure, and that's one of the questions is, in that dealing, does any money flow back, any future revenue or any continued revenue flow back to this family through Mastriani or him? And we don't know that, because now we know the deal is through Mastriani and not Mr. Dion. That raises questions for this. And I think through this whole process, it's been quite remarkable the amount of gyrations that have been going on to how to go back and forth with who owns what and who has what and who's doing what. And I think we need clarity for this. So that's the questions, with these when I asked the question around the lease too, did you have a lease with them? Did you start a new lease, or is it formally terminated, or do you get an assigned lease from Hiller's?
I got a new lease from the landlord.
So that was terminated, you have a new lease, okay? And there's no additional agreements between you and Mastriani for any revenue or anything like that going back to Hiller's Pizza?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. And so what, can you confirm, like for us, it's like this September 17th rush to revenue, exactly when the same time another loan appears on record for some reason before it opened. You're an expert at these restaurateurs. You opened up Hopkinton 110 Grill. You come to this pizza place hastily, and in less than 2 weeks you open. There's no mark from you. There's nothing changed. Same menu, same people, same everything. And why did you do this?
So keep it through the chair, please.
Okay, I'm sorry. Well, he keeps looking this way, so I wouldn't.
No, I understand. I understand.
I have to be polite when somebody's looking.
Nope, I totally get it. It's just formality. So, Mr. Dion, the floor is.
Yeah, the best answer I could give for that is Paul Mastriani called me about an opportunity. As I stated last meeting, I met him 9 years ago around the time we opened the 110 Grill. He presented an opportunity, and I took it. The deal, as I said, was done through him. I did not take out an SBA loan. I paid for it personally. I can't really comment on the prior ownership's debts. I'm not even aware of them. Everything that I started was under a new LLC. The menu is 99% the same. I did keep 8 full-time employees. I paid them out of my own pocket while we were closed. Some of the Hopkinton High School, I call them kids, I probably shouldn't, teenagers, came back to work there. I did change some interior decor, but the menu, in my opinion, works there. So I wasn't willing to just change a menu because of the former owner's personal issues. That wouldn't be a smart business decision for me, or it wouldn't be a smart business decision to, let's just say, invest $500,000 and buy all new equipment and change the menu. Because thus far, the feedback that I've received from the public in being open for 18 days is everybody liked the menu, and they're happy to return under different ownership. So that was my decision as the business owner.
Thank you. Last one.
So as that business owner with the previous loans that are on that business, and they encumber your assets, doesn't that worry you?
No.
What if he defaults on that loan and they come after those assets? You didn't do any diligence around that?
I would have to seek legal counsel on that question.
Okay. Yep. Thank you. Welcome.
My name's Alyssa McGinty, 35 Parkwood. I'm here tonight to seek some clarification and some transparency. Since the transition of Hiller's to Crest & Company, there continue to be commercial activities and transactions that are inconsistent with a business that has been sold or is in dissolution. These activities include organizational changes, active liens, and indebtedness in the name of Hiller's Pizza and/or Mr. Sismanis. As recently as September 17th, a creditor filed paperwork evidencing loans made to Hiller's Pizza and Mr. Sismanis. And in connection with this loan, the assets and future revenues of Hiller's Pizza were pledged as collateral. The address of Hiller's Pizza on these documents is listed as 77 West Main Street. I think it's obvious that these activities suggest that Hiller's Pizza continues to operate in some capacity under the control of Mr. Sismanis. And consequently, I think the obvious question is, what is the nature of this transaction that transpired between Crest & Company and Hiller's? Is Crest & Company simply a shell or parent for Hiller's Pizza? Are Hiller's Pizza and/or the Sismanis family or any affiliates thereof members of the Crest & Company LLC? I could go on because, unfortunately, the nature of my profession makes me acutely aware of the many ways this transaction could have been structured to provide economic advantages for the Sismanis family. But the bottom line is, I think we need to ask, what is the economic benefit still being derived by Mr. Sismanis under this arrangement? A sale of Hiller's assets or by the business itself would have triggered a collection by Hiller and Sismanis' creditors, but that clearly has not occurred. At a minimum, allowing Hiller's to continue so that Mr. Sismanis can keep his creditors at bay results in significant economic benefits for Mr. Sismanis. I urge the Select Board to investigate the terms and conditions of this transaction between Hiller's and Crust, their affiliates, and all related agreements, whether written or otherwise, to determine the full extent of any economic benefits that Sismanis continues to receive as a result of this transaction. And I further request that you investigate any ulterior financial motives, whether written or otherwise, which would have led Mr. Dion or any other parties to partake in the scheme. I think it's clear that we can't rush to applaud this transaction without some further transparency around it.
Thank you. So before we continue, Elaine, like just for clarity, a lot of this stuff is talking about, you know, LLC structures, business agreements that aren't typically come to the town. Like, how do we typically handle these types of things? Because it doesn't, I'm not, you know, one, I don't pretend to be an expert around these things, so I certainly, you know, don't pretend to be. But I'm just curious, like, is this within the scope of the Select Board's purview?
I don't think it's within the scope of the hearing on opening before the license was issued.
Yeah.
But when someone does apply for a license, we do check to make sure it's a legitimate business. We check the Commonwealth's database, corporate database, such as whatever information is there to make sure that the business is organized. We don't usually go beyond that, and it typically is not within the board's purview to investigate those kinds of things.
Okay. All right, so we're going to have, welcome.
Select Board. Hi, Marie Laskowski, 15 Martin Drive, Ashland, Mass. Just a few points to what Elaine just spoke to. We are actually today speaking about the opening date of September 17th and its relevancy, because that is the exact date that a loan was actually, a loan transpired publicly the exact same day that Mr. Dion opened his business. A loan was taken out by Mr. Sismanis. It became public on September 17th at 8:33 a.m. at the address of 77 West Main Street under the name Hiller's Pizza. So I think it absolutely pertains to why Mr. Dion possibly could have opened on the 17th, I think is incredibly relevant as to why we're here today. With that being said, first of all, I want to start by thanking you for the diligence that you've shown navigating these heartbreaking issues. As a parent in the community, we all thought that Hopkinton would be a safe place to build memories without our kids having to look over their shoulders. As a parent, it breaks me to think that teenagers must have feared a summer or a part-time job. Yet, that's the shadow that we continue to fight. Over the past few months, I have witnessed, number one, Sismanis and his family maneuver to resurrect the business through entity shifts, paper shuffles, and a UCC filings that seem designed to funnel funds and shield assets from his crushing debt. Number two, Mr. Mastroianni, who ignored criminal activity on his property for 2 years, your new landlord, publicly defending this family despite multiple convicted sex offenders in his circle, and cut them a lenient lease exit that allowed him to slip away penalty-free. And third, his friend Mr. Dion, who rushes in with Hiller's 2.0. The same equipment, the same menu, the same staff, just a new coat of paint for a quote-unquote fresh start. This rushed approval raises real questions about whether every detail was vetted, given those close ties to the landlord. And here's the thing, I think it's time that we rebuild the trust so our kids know that we have their backs. The timelines don't add up, people. The liens that linger and hidden ties demand that we own this community, and therefore, it's time that we start leading. Frankly, I think the board and the community would agree that we are tired, bone tired of consistently changing narratives from everyone involved and excuses that bury the truth while families wait answers. To empower you to lead decisively and reclaim Hopkinton's trust for our kids, we demand an independent third-party review, not from town council, of every document, including UCC filings, remittance histories, liens, asset transfers, leases, and site agreements. Produce them for public inspection immediately until the review clears the air. Unmask the financial flow. Our community insists on it, and as a parent, I know this board does too. Thank you. I yield to the chair.
Thank you.
If it pleases the chair, may I provide some information to you?
Sure.
I just want to be clear for the public as to what I'm providing you, if that's okay?
Yep.
Okay. What I'm providing the select board this evening includes a statement of change where Mr. Sismanis has reclaimed ownership of Hiller's Pizza as of September 5th, 2025 at 77 West Main Street, Hopkinton. Included in this packet are lien notices, tax liens on Hiller's Pizza, several of them with the largest being $68,096.80. Also in this packet is a number of UCC filings, one being the most recent from September 17th, 2025, 8:33 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen Crum, 12 Joseph Road. I'm through the chair. I wasn't expecting to hear all of this tonight. So I just looked some things up, and I just, I understand that Mr. Dion said he had a long-lasting relationship with the landlord, Paul Mastriani. I'm just trusting that he, for 9 years, never did meet his neighbor and never met the owners of Hiller's, but it is absolutely crazy that Hiller's is still in business by paper. That is their business. Hiller's Pizza exists at 77 West Main Street. I mean, there's no doubt. As Mr. Dion said, I think to answer some of the questions, he needs to seek legal counsel. I mean, we can maybe assume he didn't know any of this too. We have no idea. But he sat here and heard everything you said. I understood the parameters. You could re-listen to them. The meeting was taped. I understood everything. So to say you didn't understand or things were unclear, things were so clear. And that's what I'm focusing on, is there was no ambiguity with what the town was asking, what the board was asking. And the fact is it was open before those things that were really, really clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Okay.
Way online.
Anyone on the Zoom?
Oh, there's no one on the Zoom, no.
Okay. So with that, I'll move to the board to start with kind of.
Mr. Chair, I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second.
We've heard from everyone, right?
Yes, that was everyone.
Yep.
So we got to go roll call. Amy?
Amy Ritterbush, yes.
Shadul?
Brian Herr, yes?
Matt?
Matt Kisner, yes.
Joe Clark, yes. So that, having heard the present parties, we will now conclude, that concludes the public hearing. And so now the board will deliberate. Thank you for coming up. So who would like to start? Brian, you want to start? Thoughts?
Yeah, it's disappointing to hear some of these things that have been raised this evening in that they certainly don't lend to the public perception of what we're trying to fix here as a community, and certainly in that spot. It does sound a little odd to me as a business person that does a lot of what these folks were talking about on a daily basis with other entities. That said, I don't know what we as a board can do about that directly, other than take it into account as we weigh the infraction that we do know took place, right? So, but I don't know if that can truly guide us and be another decision we're going to make about we believe that Peter still is getting cash from Mr. Dion somehow through Paul Mastriani and yada, yada, yada. I don't know. But it is frustrating that we still have this quagmire that we're trying to get past as a community. A lot of people have been hurt by what's going on over there, and this is not helping the process. I don't believe that if again, I don't even know if we can weigh in on stuff like that, but I would like to think if it was that clandestine, that they would be really careful about when they open this thing, because then they're going to open up this can of worms if they didn't do it, and all this other stuff would be going on. So it's unfortunate that it's happened this way, but we do need to try and find a path forward. I don't think that path forward includes us creating some kind of investigation of all these business issues that were raised. But if others want to seek other means to do that investigation, they're certainly within their right.
Thank you, Brian. Shadow?
Yeah, no, it's, I think, concerning to hear all the points that was made tonight, and we've been hearing it on various fronts in the past. And that said, looking at these documents and others and hearing all the concerns, it's not honestly very clear how they are all connected. However, it does show that there are potential questions that can be asked and are being asked. And because it has been escalated so many times, and because we want to make sure that we listen to our residents and do the best for our children, our kids, our residents, for the safety and employee safety, even though it was in the past. And we learned from Mr. Dion that he repeatedly said he has nothing to do with the previous entity or the business or the persons. I do think that we do have now an obligation to have some sort of validation or check-in into the documents and the concerns that's being raised independently. I am not sure, however, how much purview and legal authority Select Board may or may not have. However, I do think that part of our job is to go with our legal obligation, our overall executive and policy duty, but part of it is also to reflect on residents' concerns, and even if it turns out to be true or not true, to move forward with actions that may be the right thing to do to uncover or just to understand the concerns at the root cause level. So I would be in favor of looking at the options, how we can tie these together, some of the questions, some of the concerns that's being made. And I hope nothing, comes out to be wrong, except that, the previous owner still has been trying to do something on their own, and that doesn't have legal, standing eventually. For example, the lien and all those can come, but it may not, be a legal legally viable document to use that even address that the previous owner is doing. I don't know, but obviously there are things that's happening to raise these questions. So I would request to explore options with the legal counsel in terms of our purview and our authority, and then look for options how we can have an independent review of these things, not necessarily, a RARA investigation, but fact-finding and connecting the dots to validate what the concerns we are hearing are true or not, even at a preliminary level. So based on that understanding, we may decide for a thorough or deeper investigation should it require, more cost or more authoritative assignment. That would be on that front. And I think part of the original scope of today's hearing is also to look at the compliance issue that has brought us. And I take a few things from that. One is, I've been saying it in the past too, that we do need to look at the process thoroughly. And as much as I want to promote business and economic activities, we just had our budget hearing first time a while ago, and we're looking at very big gap now and coming up even bigger. So we definitely want to encourage business, encourage economic activities so we can start to balance our budget as well as quality of people's lives with better facilities and restaurants. So I'm in favor of that. And the objective, again, should be that how can we make our process more transparent, more business friendly, but at the same time compliant to all the concerns that would ensure the safety and security of our community, our residents, and everyone. So that is, I think, a dire need that we need to look at some process engineering on that. And I also take into account Mr. Dion saying that it has been confusing at times. So that is also something I have heard in the past. So we definitely want to look at that, vet it out, embolden it, strengthen it, as well as make it as much business friendly as possible. That's number two. And number three, in terms of this particular miscompliance, I would look for, I think the confusion itself, in and of itself, is, in my view, not sufficient for non-compliance. And especially, I think we repeatedly was pretty clear on what are the next steps in terms of before opening that. And I fully appreciate there could be misunderstanding or other confusion you may have experienced through the process. But at the same time, we need to put in our kind of legal and executive hat. And I would recommend for some punitive action to reflect the non-compliant or to reflect our due diligence and respect for the compliance for others going forward in future. Those are my three key points I wanted to make. And the last one, I would hear from everyone how you would want to go. I definitely want to make it because it's the first time and it's a new restaurant and all the good things Mr. Dion has done for our town with the other establishments in the past, take it into account. But something to have as a message for non-compliance would be appropriate in my view.
Thank you, Shardul. Amy?
Yeah, I've started to lose my train of thought here, but I agree with, or echo Mr. Hirsch's comments about, that's unfortunate that it opened before everything was, all the ducks were in a row and everything was finalized, because we were really hoping to have a fresh start, new opening with everything going right by the books. And then new information has been brought forward that is not necessarily related to Mr. Dion, but it casts a shadow. Let's see. So I think we kind of have to separate the two things. That we're having a hearing on a particular thing about them opening before they had their license, and then a remedy of the list of choices down there. And I do agree that they opened before they had their license. I think that's not in question. And the remedy, I'm not sure which one. I think certainly not the more severe ones, not a suspension or revocation. But and then I think we definitely want to improve our process going forward. If the process is confusing to applicants, we certainly want to improve that. I think we want to also tighten up how often we do the CORI checks and the SORI checks. and possibly, other checks that we might want to do when businesses either renew or come to us for new licenses. I think that process needs to be tightened up and clarified going forward, which is not really a subject for tonight. But yeah, it was really disappointing that they opened without the license because it causes this problem that we have here. And yeah, I guess just separately, we might want to see if we can look into this. One thing I think is the case, but I'm not positive. I believe 77 West Main Street is the address for the entire building, so it doesn't necessarily mean the unit. Assuming the pizza place has a unit number and not
Suite number.
a suite number. Yeah. So, I mean, we don't know if Mr. Mastriani is letting this Manis's receive their mail at that address, although not directly at the pizza place anymore. Yeah, and I just don't know what to make of it without more information and research about this new information that we've received. I think that's all I have.
Thanks, Amy. Matt?
Oh, many things. Number one, I want to start by thanking the four of you. This information would not have come to light had we not taken the shortcut that we took last time. I appreciate that multiple of you chose to use the word unfortunate. This is not an unfortunate event. This is a known and potential deliberate outcome when we choose to not follow the process prior to licensing. When you take shortcuts in life, you are often likely to fall because you have chosen not to walk the scheduled path. That's why they are shortcuts and not the scheduled path. With all that said, I'm struggling to hear both Brian and Amy's perspective that the issues with the financial and the overall structure of loan and ownership are outside our purview. Folks, as my understanding here, we are the licensing board for this. We issue the VIC. The character of ownership and the nature of finance are relevant to assessing the business that we are ultimately issuing a license to. The entire reason this business was available is because we, the board, and the town writ large decided the previous ownership and the issues surrounding them had reached a point of distaste. To suggest that we are not allowed to consider overall distaste, appearance of impropriety, character, or information presented as part of the VIC process is borderline farcical and potentially gaslighty. I don't like that we went that way. I ultimately would like to echo Vice Chair Manon's comments here, but a little more strongly. I do think we need to look into this. The message from the town was clear. We did not want to be in business with the Sismanis family anymore based on what we had heard, the concerns that we had, and the information that was brought to the board. I'm obviously not there in person, and I'm not all that smart of a guy, but it sounded like we were just presented information construing what could be heard as like a daisy chain of subletted debt, such that debt owned by one person is essentially being paid in a potential exact amount by the second party. That certainly seems a lot like we are potentially having pass-through payments back to a business entity that we very much made clear we did not want to see operating in this town. I don't think it is just enough to say that something needs to be done and we need to review the process. To my colleagues on the board, we are the something that is done. We are the process. Let's take an action here. Ms. Lazarus, once Chair Clark has had a chance to speak, I would very much like a review of what our penalties are here. While I understand that this is a first-time offense, I am having a hard time seeing it as boys will be boys as it is being framed by some of the other members of the board. I view this pretty seriously given that one of the reasons that my colleagues chose to expedite this VIC license was that the individual was known to town. He was doing business here, had done business here, and knew the process. Now that the process has not gone well, I hear the process is complicated and difficult to follow. You'll pardon me if I'm struggling to square up the dissonance of those statements. So in general and in conclusion here, I strongly push back on the notion that we cannot be considering the finances and character of the information of the owners and the overall structures of the businesses. I do agree that that's not information that is directly part of our purview at the point of initial VIC license review. Gang, we've had enough smoke that we can literally see the fire. I don't think we need to ask if there is a fire coming from the smoke. There's a fire. Let's do something about it, yeah?
So just to be clear, and everyone, if they didn't know this, but we have four choices as a board. Take no action, impose a fine not less than $500 or not more than $1,000 for a first-time offense, suspend the license, or revoke the license. So, I'll share my thoughts quickly, and then I just want to hear what everyone's recommendation is, before we hear a motion. But, I think two things. This new information is very concerning. You know, a lot of discussion has been around the overall Vic license process. We're going to be reviewing that in 2 weeks from tonight. Like, that's going to be an open discussion between the board. We recognize there's a lot that we need to do. And, you know, like, we'll probably make some changes. I'd be shocked if we didn't. I think, you know, for this specifically, you know, I want to be clear, the board did not take a shortcut on this one. We conditionally approved things, and the intent there was that, you know, the board meets every 2 weeks. We were trying to help a new business owner, you know, get in business 10, 11, 12 days earlier. I do not think it was unclear. We've done this before for a reason, you know, especially, and we've never had issues. So it's more than just unfortunate. And, you know, going back to it, you know, I think the thing that I'm going to fall back on is we review all of these licenses in December, you know, for renewal. With this new information, I think my thought right now is I absolutely would move to impose a fine of $1,000 today to give us time to actually vet through this information over the next 2 months while we do our review, so that we can have more information and make educated decisions in the future. That would be my opinion. So I'll look for the rest of the board to just share what you think the motion should be.
Elaine, what are your thoughts about our responsibilities and our ability to investigate all these other sort of business terms and conditions? I mean, I sat here that night and I looked at Paul Mastriani. I said, is this a normal lease? And he looked at his lawyer. His lawyer said yes. And she answered the question. She was sitting right over there. So I think we did the kind of things we would typically do in a board meeting for a license, right? So if they lied to us, then that's a problem. But what is our opportunity, or can we actually do some of the things that some have suggested we do in terms of investigating this?
It depends, I think, on what kind of level of investigation the board is interested in and who would do that information. I mean, who would do that investigation? Is it a matter of looking things up, you know, online, which is easy, or is it a matter of going and interviewing people and seeking out additional documents? You know, kind of like almost like a police investigation. I mean, so it depends on what kind of level of investigation you're thinking about, and
Do you think that
what the purpose of it is.
Do you think that this victular license issue grants us the opportunity to do that by law? I know what we want to do, but by law, are we creating a risk for the town by doing this? Are we going to get sued for sticking our nose where it doesn't belong?
It's always possible. And the statute is limited on common vic licenses.
Right, so I think there's certain things we can do, and I think there's certain things that are, if it's not spelled out, I don't know if it's there. We should find that out before we make a decision about what we're going to do for an investigation. I have no problem looking into this if we can look into this and understand it better. And I would assume that the landlord would cooperate in that, given that he sat here and told us there was nothing funny going on, right? With that, I support the motion that Mr. Clark is suggesting of $1,000 fines so that this doesn't happen again.
Thank you. I think I would resonate, and I mentioned it too, that we should look at what's in our purview, and based on that, I am in favor of doing some more analysis and call it a pseudo first round preliminary investigation or better understanding of what exactly happened. And if we are not at any legal risk for doing that, I would recommend on exploring that, and we can have that discussion or that decision in the subsequent session based on your response. And we should probably scope it like you mentioned, we can. And again, I think we may not have the authority to make legal actions beyond the VIC license, but as a concerned administration or town group of officials and leaders, I think we can always initiate any investigation or analysis in our from the town administration front on what's happening in a particular business where we are hearing concerns from the residents. But again, we should vet that out, and then I would like to hear from you in the next meeting perhaps, and we can all collectively decide on that. And as for this particular one, I'm in favor of the punitive damage of punitive penalty of $1,000. I think it sends the right message. And based on what happened, again, I explained it in the past that we are looking at in favor of building our new economic development front line and how we can make our business, our town more business friendly and attractive, but not at the cost of, non-compliance or any additional risk or any type of safety and security risk on our employees and our town residents. That's for sure. And also, absolutely, we cannot allow non-compliance given the clarity and what we have given. So I'm in favor of that penalty to send the message and to establish our authoritative line on this. So those are the two I think we probably can, I would recommend to move forward tonight.
Thanks. Amy?
Yeah, no, I agree with the maximum fine of $1,000 as proposed, and I think we'll have an opportunity to learn more from our town council about what our options regarding investigation and what our role would be. And then we'll have another opportunity to review it at the renewal period at the end of, in December.
Matt?
I'm comfortable with the fine here as well. It won't surprise you to hear I was leaning a little more stringently, but I think, Chairman Clark, you've made a rather compelling path forward here. But I do want to distinguish here my understanding. This group has already taken in, as part of the overall Hillard's discussion, external information that was presented to it. And at least in my case, it was certainly part of my decision making because it was presented to the board and the town writ large. I would like us to sort of acknowledge that we've already set the precedent that character and external information can be considered as part of license to operate in this town and certainly as part of this business. Whether or not we, the board, are legally empowered to create this investigation versus whether we, the board, are legally empowered to receive information from the town and assess character, financial structure, and overall nature of business owner, I view those as being mutually exclusive, and I would appreciate if we talked about them as such, because I believe they're getting blurred here, and I do not believe they should be or need to be. They're separate issues.
Mr. Chair, I move to impose a fine of $1,000 as a first offense within a 6-month period against the common victualler license of Crust & Company Pizza and More, located at 77 West Main Street, Hopkins, Massachusetts.
Second that.
There's a motion and a second. We'll go roll call. Amy?
Amy Ritterbusch, yes.
Chidel?
Manan, yes.
Brian Herr, yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Joe Clark, yes. All right. And that ends our public hearing session on this. Mr. Dion, thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on, the Select Board will consider a planner proposal to make Church Street a one-way southbound from Main Street to Church Place per the Main Street Corridor Plans and Library Expansion Project approval. Elaine, you want to just introduce this one?
So as part of the Main Street Corridor Project, the change of a portion of Church Street to one-way was put on the plans. And that came about through public forum process when the project was originally proposed. And it also came from the approval process from the library expansion. So on the plan, it shows Church Street becoming one-way from Main Street to Church Place in a southbound direction. So entering from Main Street and heading toward the Maple Street end of Church Street. And so in advance of this coming to the board for a vote, I sent each of the property owners on Church Street a letter and invited them to a couple of open houses that Dave Del Torrio and I held last week. For one of the open houses, we had one library employee come, and for the other, we had nobody coming. We did receive an email from the funeral home indicating that they are supportive of the change, that they avoid that initial section of Church Street already, and they're able to divert their funeral processions to cemeteries in Hopkinton around to avoid that area. We also heard from St. John's Church that they're okay with the change as well.
Perfect.
And Dave Del Torrio should be on Zoom if there are any questions about from an engineering standpoint.
Yeah, he is on Zoom.
Is he out there? Okay. Amy, do you want to start with comments, questions?
Yeah, no, I remember this discussion from back when the library was going to be built, and I live very close to the area too, and I've spoken to some of the neighbors. I went to one of the library workshops, and I think I was the only resident there, or one of the librarians came too. But yeah, I think this makes sense, and the neighbors I talked to seemed comfortable with it as long as it wasn't going to be the whole length of Church Street, but just from Main Street to Church Place. So I think it is very congested whenever I've driven there, so I agree with the change.
Yeah, I look at the same. I think it makes sense, and given the feedback on others, I'm okay with that.
Brian?
This has been in the conversation and the plans for a long time, and I think it makes perfect sense. I support it.
Matt? Matt, you still with us?
Yeah, he is.
Maybe Mr. Kisner stepped away. I support this as well. So I think we need a motion for this, and Mr. Manon just walked away.
Correct. Just want to add, it won't happen immediately. There's a process we'll go through, and signage will be put in place and so forth. So it won't happen immediately.
Okay.
Should I go ahead and make the motion since it's not controversial? Okay,
I think so.
I move to designate Church Street as a one-way street southbound from Main Street to Church Place.
Second, with a comment.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Can I just comment real quick? This will be a change. This will create a little bit of angst for some in town. We will likely hear about it. That's okay, but this has been in the plan for a long time, so we can't, then have a public hearing or something else because we changed the direction of Church Street. But I do think that this makes sense, but we will hear from some.
Matt, yep, I see you're back. I don't know, it looked like you walked away. We just shared no worries. We just shared our comments. The four of us were in favor of this, so I want to give you the chance to share your thoughts.
I am as well, but I did want to ask if there was any concern from those who live particularly on Church Place, because this does change the usage of that artery in a slightly different way, and that is a tiny street as it intersects back to Hayden and the town common. I would have some general concerns about flow of traffic and increase of traffic on a sleepy street that already doesn't have sidewalks, if my memory serves me. Have we heard from any abutters, and are there any concerns about the redirection of traffic flow?
I was going to say, fun fact, there's no addresses on Church Street, but Church Place, right?
Church Place.
Church Place, yeah, it's backyards only.
There is a sidewalk there, isn't there?
There's one driveway I know of.
But the address is Hayden Row.
But it's a Hayden Row address. Yep. So Elaine, to Matt's question, any
No.
issues? Do you hear that, Matt?
I did. So as always, I'll echo the same message to the community. I'm always going to ask the question on your behalf, but if you haven't asked it yourselves, I can't represent a concern any louder than that. So if there are nothing from the abutters, I have no further concerns.
Okay. 300 foot abutters received the notice, right? So it would have been the people on
Just anyone who owns property fronting Church Street.
Church Street.
And that includes people on the corner of Church Place and Church Street.
Okay.
Okay, so we had a motion and a second. We'll do roll call. Matt, we'll start with you.
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Scheidel?
Yes.
Brian?
Brian Hur, yes.
Joe Clark, yes. All right, that is unanimous and carries. All right, next, we're moving on to the Pine Island. In accordance with the town's general bylaws, Chapter 174, Streets and Sidewalks, Article 6, Temporary Repairs on Private Ways, the Select Board will review the report of the Director of Public Works and determine whether identified repairs, reconstructions, or improvements are required for the public health or safety, the protection of the environment, and the public convenience and necessity. And if it is so determines, the Select Board may approve the project in determining the funding source, which is proposed to be the Highway Department operating budget. The estimated cost of the repairs is $474.73. DPW Director Kerry Reed will also review the plans pertaining to the resident sand salt pile that has been located at 66 Fruit Street. Kerry, would you like to join us? Welcome.
Hello. Carrie Reed, Director of Public Works. So you pretty much summed it up. So Pine Island Road is not publicly accepted. We do get a lot of requests. For those of you who are not familiar, it is within the limits of Hopkinton. It's one you have to drive through Milford to get to. It's along the lake. It's partially paved and it's partially dirt road. So we do get a lot of requests for different things and improvements, but in accordance with our bylaw, since it's not publicly accepted, we have a lot of limitations on what we can do, and we have to come before this board to do any of that.
Perfect. And before we go to the board, what would your recommendation be here?
This particular one, they're asking for some repair of some potholes and repair of a berm. So it's consistent with what we do for other roads. So if you approve it, then I recommend that we do it. But I do have concerns with the overall road, and I would love at some point to get a little bit more clarification on that, because many of the butters have concerns, but that's a different story for a different day. But I've explained it, and we've reached out to the butters through letters previously, and so they asked for this work to be done within the confines of what we're allowed to do under the bylaws, and I recommend it.
Okay, thanks, Carrie. Town Manager's Office, thoughts, comments?
Yeah, I think it'd be great if we can make some minor repairs and definitely consider, how to manage this road in the future.
All right. Amy, you want to start with questions?
Yeah, no, it's a small amount, and I agreed that we should probably go ahead and do that. But I did want to ask what the process would be. It sounds like the road is in great disrepair, and to become a public road, it would have to be upgraded significantly at the residents' expense, the property owner's expense? Or?
I would say before I would recommend it be publicly accepted, it should be upgraded to a better standard. We as a town have the ability to decide how that would be paid for by betterments, or town meeting could pay for it all. So there's different options for the actual cost of it. But yes, I would recommend that we wouldn't accept it as is.
Right, it's not up to standards at the moment. Okay, but there'd be a variety of ways of potentially funding that at some point in the future. Okay.
Shidul?
Yeah, I am okay with this repair and paying from the town. I think that makes sense, given the number and the benefit. And I would like to understand for the full, what do we call it, the adoption of the street by the town in terms of what it makes sense, what the arguments would be, and what the cost would be. So that's probably a discussion for another day, but I'm okay with this.
Brian?
I'm all set, thanks.
Matt?
Yeah, thanks, through the chair. Carrie, can you clarify whether this is a private road or is this an unaccepted public road?
There's no such thing as an unaccepted public road. It's either publicly accepted or not. So in default, it's private.
You know what I'm trying to ask, though? Like, is if the road were to hypothetically be accepted, this would be a public road. It would not be intended to be a private way.
If it was accepted, it would become a public road. There's no requirement that a public road has to meet subdivision standards or anything like that. So it could be accepted even as a dirt road if the town wanted to take responsibility for it, but it hasn't been yet.
So the reason I'm asking such a pedantic question is I wanted to kind of understand the nuance of the unaccepted road. Ms. Lazarus, is there any potential legal exposure for us in terms of, because it's an unaccepted road and we're saying we're not obligated to maintain it because it's unaccepted, but these are likely constituents who are still doing things like paying taxes in the town and enjoying our services. If we were to decline to maintain the road, would there ultimately be exposure to us from a legal perspective such that a taxpayer in town could challenge why we were not maintaining, given that they were paying taxes?
I'm not a lawyer, so I can't answer a legal question. But I can say that what's proposed is consistent with the bylaw that was adopted under the statutory abilities that we have, and so what is proposed is something that is legal.
And we do elsewhere, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not against paving the road, gang. What I'm trying to understand is our exposure to the other parts of town that are going to realize that there's an apparatus by which you can come to the select board and highlight that your unaccepted road needs repairs. It will shock you to hear that I am thinking about this in terms of what it might cost the town as a financial expenditure. So I would like to get a little bit of clarity on that, Elaine, maybe as a future action item to town council, just to better understand what our exposure is. Is this someone who allegedly also lives at the end of a potentially unaccepted road? I've also found it pretty curious that I pay taxes for things, but that we hide behind it on the other side. With that said, this is an incredibly small amount of money that I fully support. But Carrie, we need to come back here and have a more mature discussion about what in the name of goodness is an actual pavement management plan for the town, because we just cannot keep doing this one at a time. And that's not a criticism of you, that is an indictment of us not giving you the funds you need to do the job you've requested to do.
Mr. Chair, I move that we authorize the Department of Public Works to perform temporary repairs on Pine Island Road as outlined in the memorandum from the Director of Public Works dated September 29, 2025. Repairs shall be paid by the town.
Second that?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, Brian?
Brian Herr, yes.
Shaidur Manan, yes.
Amy Ritterbush, yes?
Matt? Joe Clark, yes. All right, Carrie, thank you.
Thanks, Carrie.
Appreciate you sticking around today.
Thank you, Kerry.
All right.
There's one other item that she can address with you now, and that's the resident sand and salt pile.
Oh, yes.
That was on the future agenda items list.
Yep.
To some degree, I don't have any additional information as DPW director, but the Water and Sewer Advisory Board provided some feedback from you, and the Select Board had it as a future agenda request. So I believe their recommendation is in your packet. It's basically, we haven't been able to find a viable spot that's not in the Water Resources Overlay Protection District that would meet the needs of the town. So what we're proposing and what we continue to propose is that we could provide this service at the DPW at request to support like the Sand for Seniors program, which we have. The sand and salt pile, from what I understand, was really intended for our most vulnerable constituents. So we continue to offer that, and we continue to provide that program through the fire department and the senior center. That actually also helps them because they can identify folks that might be in need. They can do some assessments, it gets them to do some community outreach. So we would continue to work with them for that. But there would not be, for this winter, a publicly available where you can come at your own time and leisure and pick up sand and salt provided by the town.
So we'd be at the DPW site closer to town, like on Wood Street, not as far as Fruit Street?
Correct. It would be Wood Street behind the gate, not open to the public.
Okay, but people could request it through the senior center or other services? Okay.
No, nothing particular. I think that all makes sense.
Brian?
All set. Thanks.
Matt?
Hey, this was a me topic. As you may recall, I got salty about this. Brian, you enjoyed the pun in real time. Carrie, thank you so much for coming back on this one. I appreciate that we didn't let go. As you noted, I view this as a service that is disproportionately utilized by some of the more vulnerable members of our community, or in my case, as a member of the community who has realized they don't have sand or salt before a major storm. What I would like to do here, and I know that this is mixed messaging for me, Carrie, I understand that you haven't been able to find a suitable location in the water overlay where you are now. I would very much like to hear from either you or Water and Sewer a capital request for what it would look like to build an actual suitable facility for this. I think there is going to be more than enough town support for the service it provides to build an adequate space for this moving forward, and I don't think you're going to ask me to build you the Porsche of salt pile storage. I think this is something that we can get done. Whether it's this year or next, I'd at least like to present that option to the town and have the conversation. When we talk about tightening the belt is not taking away services from our vulnerable constituents. Tightening the belt is getting rid of elective things to make sure we continue to provide for our vulnerable constituents. So I do want to challenge you a little bit there to give us something and make it hard for us to make that decision. We're asking you for something. Help us spend some money.
I can help you spend money.
All right. Chair, I do have one follow-up question. Kerry, I remember last year, the year before, there were concerns from some of the residents in the quality of the water, and we went about testing the water to see that nothing was seeping in that contaminated the water. And we did the testing. I think the result was okay. And I think this service is definitely important, and I support it, and we do want to continue to it. And at that time also, we talked about trying to find another location for doing that. So I think this is a good conversation to have. But at the same time, when we do this, we should keep that in mind, that at some point, maybe in the middle of the winter or sometime, should we go back and test the water just to make sure that the contamination is not happening as a precaution. And should there anything that becomes dominant at that time, we should look for remediation. But this service is important. The water quality is similarly important. My understanding is where we deposit, it can seep into the water system.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, your concerns are about salt intrusion or increased connectivity as a result of salt at our wells. Right. I think we have a sufficient enough sampling protocols now. It's never been an issue. I don't think it would be an issue. I don't recommend doing additional sampling. I really don't think it's enough of a risk. There's other areas in town where that might be that are not managed by the DPW, but honestly, I think it would be a little bit of overkill. I honestly even think that moving it was overkill, but it was not consistent with the Water Resources Overlay District rules and regulations, whatever the correct long terminology is. So we will be in compliance. But I don't think, I'm not concerned about salt intrusion at well 6.
No, that's good to hear. Yeah, just be cognizant of that. I don't remember, was it last year or the year before? Ken Wisemantel made repeated requests, and then we did one time, right? But you don't think we need to?
I do not.
Thank you.
All right, I'm good. I have no further questions. I'm comfortable with this. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
All right. Next, the Select Board will hear an update on the construction of a pickleball paddle club at 124 East Main Street and their interest in a TIF, tax increment finance agreement with the town. The Select Board will consider authorizing the town manager and the legal team to negotiate a TIF agreement. TIF agreements require town meeting approval. Elaine?
So thank you. Yev Gelper, I believe, should be on Zoom, and he is the owner and developer of the new pickleball facility on East Main Street. He has sent the town a letter of intent to negotiate a tax increment financing agreement with the town. Such agreements are negotiated, and then the board has to approve it at some point, and then it ultimately goes to town meeting for a vote. So it's the beginning of a process. And as part of this process, we always ask our potential businesses if they will fund town council's work in this process. So Mr. Gelper has agreed to fund our legal costs through this process, and we've both signed an agreement that they will be responsible for reimbursing the town for its legal costs in this effort. So I think if you'd like to hear about his business, he's ready to talk about his business and what he's constructing and how many jobs he'll bring to the community.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll start there. Can you hear us out there?
He's just coming on. Yeah.
Okay.
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. So first of all, I want to apologize for not coming in person. I just had a design review board like a couple hours ago, and I didn't know how long that will go and when my time slot would be allotted for this specific meeting. So apologies for that. So I'm building a pickleball and padel club at 124 East Main Street. I'm sure you all know what pickleball is. Many might not know what padel is. Padel is another racket sport, and basically what pickleball is doing in the US, padel is doing in the rest of the world. It's the fastest growing sport in the world, and it's just coming to US. Okay, so it creates a really amazing opportunity to attract players and tournaments and leagues and to town of Hopkinton. It's going to be an amazing facility. Unlike many other clubs, my club will have 19 courts altogether, unlike others that have 4 or 6, maybe 8. The other thing is that my club is built ground up, unlike many other clubs that are occupying Bed Bath & Beyond that went out of business. So that was not suited specifically for those sports. So the ceiling is low, the columns are not in the right places. This club is specifically designed for these two sports. And it creates an amazing opportunity for the community as well, both from employment perspective and participation perspective. As you know, both of these sports, pickleball and padel, are the sports that are very social. by nature, and that's why they became both of them became so popular during pandemic. But also, both of these sports, people can play from like 6 or 7 year old until like 87-year-old. I'm very passionate about these sports. I'm a competitive player and I'm a coach in both sports, and this is my passion, really. Project. I left corporate world and decided to dedicate the rest of my life doing something for the community and to bring joy to the community while building a meaningful business. So as a business of that scale, so 19 courts, 25,000 square foot facility, there's going to be indoor and outdoor courts. You can imagine that it will require a number of people to staff this facility. So in the first year, I imagine that there will be 6 to 8 full-time employees, and with the goal to increase that number to 10 to 14 in the coming years once I have the opportunity to build membership and programming. I'm building relationships with a number of communities and nonprofit organizations. For example, I'm supporting 26.2 Foundation. We're discussing how to build fundraising events. I'm actually sponsoring YMCA and Hopkinton Center of Arts pickleball tournament that is happening in less than 2 weeks. So I'm being a member of the community, and I want to build a community. I want to bring value and joy to the community. I'm also starting to develop relationships with high school, presenting opportunities to build varsity programs for pickleball and padel, especially pickleball, because this sport is becoming a very important sport in many colleges who start to give scholarships. This will become an important sport for high schools because as colleges start to give scholarships, high schools are starting to build varsity teams to attract talent. So having a facility next door like this is going to be amazing. Another unique piece about my club is that I got inspired by 26.2 Foundation that is building or will be building Marathon Hall of Fame across the street pretty much from my facility. I will be building Pickleball and Padel Hall of Fame. And I started collecting, vast number of various hand-signed paddles and memorabilia from elite players, and I will be sharing history and innovation of this sport that will attract people from further away, not just the local community. So I imagine that this will enable me to run significant events, the number of courts that I have on the padel side. So you understand kind of where we are in the development of the sport. In Massachusetts, there are currently 7 courts, publicly available 7 courts. In Spain, for comparison, there are over 20,000 courts. Okay, so there is massive opportunity here, and having a center like this in Hopkinton is going to be amazing, I think. Now, in terms of the land itself, interestingly enough, it was part of this piece of land that Roy McDowell bought many years ago from Western Nurseries, and that is the very last piece of land that he owned. Everything else got developed with Legacy Farms and neighboring Fairview Estates. I saw at least 7 or 8 different designs of that specific lot. Different ideas kind of were planned, but everybody in the end bailed out because of 2 specific challenges with this land. One challenge is that about a third of this piece of land is wetlands, and about a quarter of the remaining piece of land is a vast leaching field, like commercial grade football field size leach field that needed to be built and connected to the private wastewater treatment plant in order to support this community that Mr. McDowell created and helped build. So it was really, really challenging to find a buyer for that land, and that's why this piece of land stayed vacant for many, many years. And I just took a risk and decided to see if I can build the business of my dream and bring value and joy to the community. So you can imagine that the building like this costs a lot of money, and it has a massive upfront cost, which escalated actually during the last 12, 18 months with increased materials, increased labor, now tariffs, and at the beginning, first 2 years, it will be operating under full capacity, obviously, because the membership needs time to be built. And that is one of the reasons why I'm seeking for support in the form of tax increment finance and TIF, because it will be very challenging for me to have all these expenses up front and pay the SBA loan that I received to build this project, and to pay full tax, especially in the initial years, right? So with all of that, I also, the other piece that I would like to share is that I'm applying for Economic Development Incentive Program, EDIP, and they are very supportive of the program. One thing that they asked is the support from the town. And we did get a letter of support from the town, but they asked if the town could support the project with TIF. This would definitely show that the local community would benefit from the project, which I believe it will, and they are more likely to support me with EDIP as well. So this is doubly important for the project and for the company to, like, for the club to be to apply for TIF and hopefully get support, because it will also lead to the support from the state. Happy to address any questions or answer any concerns.
Okay. Well, thank you for the overview. I think it's a very exciting opportunity for you, obviously, but also the town. So I guess, my first thought is, Elaine, this type of agreement is, new to me. I'm sure it's, new to some people in town. Can you just walk us through the town's history with these types of agreements before we ask questions?
Sure, we have had agreements before. The most recent one was with Lycan on South Street. We actually have 2 agreements with them for 2 different facilities. And so basically, what it is it's a property tax incentive that applies to the incremental value of what's created. So there's the base value of the building before the project, and then the value afterwards, and that it smooths out the increase in the taxes throughout those years of the agreement. So they could be 5-year agreements up to a 20-year agreement. And it's negotiated between the 2 parties as to how fast that escalates through the years. But it's intended to allow the business to get going without that immediate jump to the new tax rate for the property tax increase right at the very beginning. Evens it out.
And tonight, we'd just be authorizing you to negotiate, then we'll come back to us, and then eventually to town meeting.
That's correct.
Right. Okay. So I'm comfortable with moving forward.
You're comfortable?
Yeah.
And obviously, what's your recommendation?
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that we could negotiate and bring to the board to see if it's something that you feel is worthwhile to the community.
Okay. Shadul?
Yeah, no, I'm excited and happy to hear new business coming, and especially the nature of this goes very well with our town character, and it'll become another vibrant facility potentially for the town residents, adding to the quality of life and amenities. So I'm really excited, and I'm in favor of having Elaine negotiate the TIF agreements, and hopefully others follow. And I know that pickleball has been super popular and we can't build enough courts. So this will certainly add to the residents' demand, and hopefully you'll get to build more or bring your friends to build more. One quick question I had, just out of curiosity, because I have been advocating and would like to continue to advocate for economic development. Mr. Galpar, what interested you in our town?
Well, I think it's an amazing town, and there were a few factors. One factor, frankly speaking, is proximity to the place where I live. I live only 25 minutes away in Wayland. I couldn't travel for 2 hours. It's a very, very nice town. I love Hopkinton. I love the surrounding area. It's an affluent community that would definitely appreciate the facility like this, pickleball and padel, and I also will have golf simulator and a bunch of other amenities. So, building a premier facility. To build a premier facility, I was looking for a premier spot, and I couldn't actually find a better spot than right on the Marathon route, right on the main street of such a great town.
That's great to hear. Thank you for choosing our town, and tell your friends and other business owners as well. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
A couple of thoughts, and thanks for coming in this evening. We appreciate the opportunity to take a look at this. You mentioned the number of jobs. I think the TIF is at the state level, and the DOR is tied to the number of jobs created as well. Is that true?
It used to be, there was a lot more restriction on number of jobs and so forth, and that has basically kind of fallen away from the program somewhat.
Okay, so it's less stringent.
Yes.
Got it, because I think he mentioned there was going to be 14 jobs. Did I hear that?
I think max.
Yeah, so I know when we did, so my experience with TIFs over the years has been, I think, a little bit mixed. Sometimes they have worked well, sometimes they have not. We've had a couple of times where we had to go after people to honor the TIF when they left town. So I'm not suggesting that would happen here, but and we want to make sure when we negotiate, we have mechanisms in place that everybody's accountable to deliver what they say they're going to deliver. That's a fair and reasonable thing to do. It's just business 101. But we didn't necessarily do that in the past. So I'd like to make sure that that's the case. Secondly, we're talking about pickleball and the other game, which sounds very interesting. And I try to play a little pickleball myself, but I'm not quite getting it yet. We have invested here in town in pickleball courts at our public facility on Fruit Street. So I don't know if you've spoken with the Parks and Rec department or not. I mean, you're going to come to town. There'll be a different type of club, obviously, a private club, but it will be a competitor, quote unquote, to what we have invested in at the community level already. So I would encourage a dialogue with Parks and Rec. I don't think it'll be a problem, but let's just make sure if we're all in the same business together, that we all work together and understand what everyone's goals are. So I'd encourage you to get with the Parks and Rec team and chat with them a little bit. Other than that, I'm fine. I think I'm sorry?
May I respond to this comment?
Sure.
Thank you. It's a very fair point. I'm actually in continuous conversation with Park and Rec, and I had numerous conversations with John, and we have mutual support. Now, I actually do not see it as a competition. There's going to be a number of people who would be interested to take advantage of free courts, free publicly available courts, and it's going to be serving that population, which is great. It's awesome. I totally support towns creating opportunities for people to play pickleball. It's staying active and social and happy and joyful and so forth, building connections and friendship. But it's not. We live in New England, right? We don't live in Hawaii, for example, where you have beautiful weather year-round. Here we have snow, we have wind, we have rain, so we have humid. So not everybody. Also, so people can't play every day of the year on publicly available courts because they are outdoors. Also, there is no lighting, so they can play in the evening. Also, it lacks publicly available courts, not only in Hopkinton, but generally speaking, lack organization. It doesn't provide enough tournaments, leagues, open plays, and so forth. So by and large, it's either clinics that town offers, or it's you need to bring your own foursome and you play, right? So I will offer opportunity to join the community, right? So I see it as a very, very different thing, a year-round rather than fair weather. And I think with the popularity of pickleball, and mind you, 14% last year of Americans play pickleball, right? At least once. So there is much bigger demand than the publicly available courts that we have in Hopkins or surrounding towns.
Great. I'm glad you're talking to the Parks. Yeah.
For both the club and the courts. Sorry.
I'm glad you're talking to the Parks and Rec team and our colleagues on Parks and Rec Commission. Thank you. And I'm fine with going ahead and trying to negotiate this. But we have had some mixed results over the years, so let's just be aware of that and move ahead. Thank you.
Matt?
Yeah, a couple thoughts. Mr. Galper, first, my apologies for not getting back to you. It's been an eventful month in my life, as evidenced by my absence tonight. Just a few quick thoughts in general. So, number one, I'm very much in favor of the development at the outset. One of the things that's consistently highlighted to us by places like Mass Bio Council, when we think about economic development in town, we are missing many services that higher end knowledge workers are looking for. Athletic clubs, athletic facilities, gymnasiums, things like that are consistently cited to us as something that are in our sister communities but are not in our community. And when these smaller biotechs, businesses, etc., pickleball clubs, if you will, are making these decisions, I think they are looking around at the inflow of customers to the business, and they're making their decisions accordingly. So from a long-term strategic and economic development perspective, I could see a lot of reasons for us to support this. It does fit a growing need. As Mr. Delper described it, I do see a synergistic benefit with the investment we've already made. The kids learn on the free court, and you decide to go check out the club and pursue your skills further. That's just the pipeline of athletics for me. My concerns are much more, one, I would really like to hear from both our CFO and our Economic Development Officer what their recommendations and thoughts are around the TIF. I'd actually like to understand the financial impact of what it means to the town and what it potentially costs the taxpayer to go this way. That doesn't mean I'm opposed to it, but it does mean I don't want to have the conversation in abstraction. I do want to echo Brian's comments as well about ensuring that we have mechanisms in place to not chase. I don't think that's an issue here, but you plan for failure to ensure your success. And then last but not least, and Mr. Gelper, this is somewhat personal, but I can tell you it's a very real concern. I live on the dead end that happens to abut Legacy Farms, and in that space, I can tell you every single person, on my street and on my neighboring street has had water in their basement except me and the other guy at the end of the road. We are incredibly high on the water table, and there is significant concern amongst my constituents and my direct neighbors about the impact of what you're going to do from a wetlands and leach field perspective. So I'll very much be looking forward to hearing what your plan is for mitigating those concerns for the abutters, because they've been very loud and clear to me, to say nothing of my own personal interest in this. There is some fear that the development of Hopkinton is, no pun intended, going to leave them underwater. Thank you.
Matt, I appreciate your linguistic ability to use puns and your critical thinking. So it's not the first time that I heard about the flooding, and as a matter of fact, during the first meeting that I had with Zoning Board of Appeals, there was one of the neighbors who came on that meeting trying to convince the board to stop the project because of flooding specifically. And they said because of all this impervious coverage, it will create more flooding. Okay? I asked him to bear with me and to meet with me personally in 10 days or so, which we did. We met. He actually brought two more abutters, his neighbors, and I presented them a stormwater management plan, like 94-page paper, like report that was created by a civil engineer. to mitigate specifically stormwater runoff. And it would, basically my request was to make it better than what it is right now, okay? Even with all this impervious coverage. That led into a very elaborate plan of stormwater management system that addresses 1-year storm, 10-year storm, 100-year storm, and apocalyptical, what is called NOAA event, right? Like storms that we've never seen here, right? And it's going to cost me north of $300,000 to install that stormwater management system, which I gladly will do to prevent flooding from.
Mr. Gilbert, just in the interest of time here, what I think I'm hearing to save us all, you're in conversations with the abutters in the community, and it sounds like you're robustly addressing the concern I have voiced. I continue to be largely in support of the overall initiative. I really do want to hear from the CFO and from our economic development officer about what the dollars and cents are, but in terms of at least sending a positive message about beginning negotiations and starting to put the P's and Q's together, I think it's a great idea, and I appreciate you both choosing our community and the clear level of engagement you have demonstrated on both the question I have asked and the question Brian asked about Parks and Rec. It's not often somebody comes before this board and is asked multiple questions and is able to demonstrate the depth of knowledge you have about the people in town and the players involved. It speaks very well of you and how serious you're taking this.
Thank you, man.
And,
All right, thank you.
Just to clarify one other point, Elaine, this is today or tonight, what we are deciding is to give you the authority to have the discussion and draw up a proposal with potential TIF offering. But eventually it'll go through the planning board should there be establishments built, and what are the water and other impacts that can be analyzed at that time. And eventually you will come back with the proposal, and we'll look at the financial benefits, cost-benefit analysis, and all those at that point.
Chair, I think they are going through the planning board process already, right? They're under construction.
It's under construction.
This is just the TIF agreement.
Exactly.
So I think, and I think we've already heard, like, again, thank you for joining us. I've heard multiple board members say they're comfortable with authorizing the town manager to move forward.
Yeah.
So I think at this point, I think you said you'd come back to the board with a proposal before a town meeting, like those are future steps. So in the interest of time, I'd like to hear a motion.
Yep, I would move to authorize the town manager and the town legals council to negotiate a TIF agreement with the Open Play Pickleball and Paddle Club.
Thank you.
We've got a motion and a second. Roll call. Matt?
Matt Kisner, aye.
Amy?
Amy Roderbush, yes.
Schneiderman, yes.
Brian Herr, yes.
And Joe Clark, yes. Thank you. Thank you again for your interest in this town. We look forward to hearing more on the progress.
Thank you.
Thank you for your support. Have a wonderful evening.
Yep, you as well. All right, next, the town manager will review the town charter review process, which occurs every 10 years. The process includes the appointment of a charter review committee this fall. Elaine?
Yes, so this is the year where the town appoints a charter review committee. The charter was adopted, almost 20 years ago. So there was a review at the 10-year, and now it's leading up to the 20-year mark. The charter itself identifies who will serve on the committee, who appoints the committee. And so the process could start with appointments early in November. And then typically, what the first process did was have a couple of public hearings, interview a lot of people involved in government, outside of government, about what might be changed, and then work toward either amendments considered at an annual town meeting, at a special town meeting within the annual, which provides for a longer timeline, or at a special town meeting in the fall next year. So the timeline that I've included in the packet is the shortest, which is for the annual town meeting, but there is the ability to have a longer process throughout 2026. So I've included in there a draft charge for the board to look at. At this point, the board doesn't need to approve that. At this point, we can review it again with any changes. But as I said, the charter itself identifies how the members are appointed, and we would advertise for interested people, as we do for all appointments. We seek volunteers.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you for the overview. I think like you just said, We don't need like a motion or anything tonight. We need to look at this. Obviously, we don't do this often, so it's a very important decision. A lot will go into this, both from the board, input from the town departments, and then the residents. So does anyone have any questions for Elaine?
I do just have one comment before we begin. I had been really interested in this 10 years ago when we first were going to do this, and I applied, and I was really disappointed that no one even contacted me to come interview me to be on the committee because of the strange appointing structure. Like, each of the different boards met separately and appointed one person, and then there was, I don't know, it just didn't seem very public last time, so I hope we can do it more publicly, have a centralized application place, and that each board can be aware of who's appointing which person so that everyone gets a fair chance.
Yeah, I think that each of the boards that appoint an individual person would have to do it at a public meeting. And I think that the committee that would, as identified as the appointed committee, would have to have a public meeting to make those appointments.
Yeah, just
would have to notify people.
It'd be nice if they notified the applicants when they would be discussing it. Yeah. Okay, just my 2 cents. Yep.
Yeah, I think it's exciting and it's about time, so all for it, and let's begin the process. I'm also thinking the same along with Amy, that as much, it's obviously a transparent and open public process, but as much as we can centralize it, the selection process, it will give probably a quicker and fair chance for everyone's visibility.
Brian?
It's in the charter. It's part of what we do. It's a heavy lift. It's a big lift. So I would make sure we plan appropriately and dedicate resources and things of that nature, but makes sense.
It is a big time commitment for members.
Yeah, I think we need to address that as it goes public with everything. Matt?
Hey, a completely pedantic exercise that's highly word-based and has the potential to completely upend the philosophical direction of the town. I'm super excited and interested in this one. This has been on my radar for a while, and I'm very much looking forward to being as much of a part of this as I can convince the rest of you to allow me to be. I view this as one of the more important things we're going to do this year that does not immediately involve the direct governance and budgeting of the town. Real excited to work with you all on this.
Perfect. Yeah, I have no additional comments. So we'll be hearing a lot about this as we move forward. So thank you, Elaine. With that brings us on to consider selecting a law firm to provide town council services. Right. So Brian has just recused himself. So I think at our last meeting, we left with a few questions that we sent out to the 3 firms, KP, Harrington Heap, and Mead, Tollerman, Costa. We got responses from all, I think, last week, right? The boards had a chance to review them. Elaine, can you walk us through what we can share? I know I can talk through from feedback from my perspective, but just from a level set standpoint of how we're going to discuss this.
I think as before, you can talk about what you heard at the meeting, what you've read in the proposals, and what you received and the feedback since the last meeting that each provided. So you can talk openly about all of that.
Specifics in the feedback that we're given. Okay, perfect. So I will kind of open that up to the board for thoughts. Hey, Matt, do you want to go first on this one?
Yeah, so I took a look at the answers, and I'll be honest, it didn't really change a lot of how I had these ranked because I was very pleased by the answer that we received, specifically from Mead, Tellerman, and Costa. So the question we really had around them was around that conflict of interest, knowing that they serve so many of our sister communities. I think Amy rightly highlighted that one of the bigger things we're expecting to do in the coming future is the IMA with Southborough potentially, as well as Ashland, and that would be a direct conflict here. For the town's benefit, we actually requested additional information from the firms. One of the things that Mead, Tellerman, and Costa told us is essentially because of the financial model that we are opting for and considering at the moment, any supplemental counsel that we needed would essentially be deducted from their fee if there was a conflict of interest. So I hope you hear that as it would not cost us additional money to get supplemental counsel if a conflict arose. That for me was really the only concern about this group, and that was the only reason that I had dinged them during our evaluation. Having that concern resolved really does elevate them significantly above the other firms from my perspective, though I would continue to be satisfied with KP Law as well, but I do view them as a clear first and second respectively based on this updated information and the prior assessment.
Thank you, Matt. Shadul, you want to go?
Yeah, no, I liked the responses, and I think I would echo what Matt said, that all three seem to be very competent and qualified, and I made my previous comments on the ranking. And I think with this new or additional information, I am feeling more comfortable with KP Law, given that they don't have direct conflict with the potential issues we may have with our other towns who may be their clients. But that said, MTC's response was pretty favorable as well, and I liked their new financial model that they reflected on with that. But I'm just thinking for 1 year, it sounds a little, complicated with having another special counsel who they will pay, and then they will not charge for that work, and work would be distributed. Should we have those discussions or IMAs going in discussion? So I would, favor KP Law, I think, overall for the choice I would go for.
Thanks, Shadul. Amy?
Yeah, no, I appreciated the responses. I think, though, for me, I'm still kind of where I was before, but I do think we just need to go ahead and make a decision tonight. So I think somebody should make a motion, we'll take a vote, and we'll see
Okay.
where we land.
All right, thanks, Amy. So Elaine, I'll let your office chime in after this as well. But my thoughts, I kind of echo what everyone says. We got very reassuring responses from all three. I think both from the redaction policy standpoint, I felt like there was a lot of consistency there. And then specifically, I'll echo what Mr. Kisner shared. My one concern with MTC, which was my first choice, was the potential cost of having, special counsel regarding the IMAs. Crystal clear that, that time will be kind of deducted from their costs. So again, I think he said it perfectly, we won't pay anything more. And then I combine that, this is just, my thought was, this is only a 1-year term. I don't view it as like a, it's just 1 year. It's to give us the ability, if we do move forward, and it sounds like everyone's agreed that, we would be changing to a different firm. It gives us the ability to not feel locked in for long term. And really, when I compare both MTC and KP Law, I know both are, great law firms. I just looked at the fact that, KP Law is more expensive, and I worry about that concern on the budget. And I know that, with MTC, we could even use Harrington Heap, which has the same, or I should say almost the same proposed hourly rate. So I think costs would be very consistent if we went with that approach. So that would be my recommendation. So we would have some say in special counsel, which also has a background with Hopkinton. I think there's value in that. So yeah, my recommendation would be MTC. Harrington Heap is special counsel for IMAs. And Elaine, I'm happy to make a motion after Elaine shares her thoughts.
So if it's a choice between KP Law and MTC, our MTC was in our ranking above KP Law, and the answers that we received didn't change that.
Okay. Yeah, I would make the motion then. I'll take this one first. Like we said, we'll have a chance to vote and see where we end up. But I move to appoint Mead, Tollerman, and Costa as town council to a 1-year term.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second, so we can discuss first if anyone has any comments, or we can just put it to a vote. So I'll open the floor.
So would this be with the provision that Harrington Heap would continue? They've already started the Southborough IMA negotiations, I think, or they would continue with that, or Mead, Tollerman, and Costa would?
I'm very comfortable with amending that motion to incorporate that, if that's.
I think that the appointment of town council is just a motion on its own, and we don't need necessarily a motion for special counsel.
Okay.
We can choose special counsel depending on what it is throughout the year.
Okay.
We could make that choice.
Maybe Harrington Heap, maybe another firm.
Okay.
Through the chair, I prefer what Amy was suggesting, and the way we are discussing, I like the model, as I said, and I think all three are pretty competent in my view. And I think since we are looking at MTC, as I said, MTC, KP Law, both are pretty competent and competitive in my mind, so I don't have any problem with having MTC being our choice. But I would like to add that as an amendment, if we all agree, that we would have, when there is a potential conflict of interest, we'd have special counsel. And since we have already vetted the three, and since HIP is potential option for that, we also want to probably include that.
So then to kind of balance what Elaine said, because it sounds like other small things can pop up, I think the IMAs were our big thoughts. I would amend my motion. I would move to appoint Mead, Tellerman, Costa as town council to a one-year term, and with the preference of using Harrington Heap as our special counsel on IMA negotiations.
I'd second that.
Just as a quick question, I wanted to ensure that we actually were able to make that request, because ultimately we're talking about now requesting a continuity of services from a firm that will no longer have a contract with us past the transition. I just don't want to be acting in a way in which we are assuming that they are going to say yes. We're welcome to express a preference. They're obviously going to support us in transition activities because that's part of the existing contract and statement of work we have with them. We should not assume that they're going to say yes, and I would be cautious about what we put in.
Yeah, that's a good point, Matt. That's why I said with our preference. Elaine, did that amended motion sound in line with you?
I think it'd be great to have some flexibility there, so preference is fine.
Okay. So, all right. So it sounds like that was accepted. There was a second on that. So we'll just go to a vote, and it's got to be roll call. Amy?
Mira Bush, yes.
Shahidul Manan, yes.
Matt?
Matt Kisner, yes.
Joe Clark, yes. So that is unanimous. All right. Thank you, everyone. I know this was a drawn-out process. It was an important one, so I'm glad we took the time to go through this. Thank you to Elaine and Lance for all your support through that process and moving forward, of course. All right. That brings us to, can you see if Brian's down the hallway, Lance? We can welcome him back. And so next, we'll consider discussing and setting our goals for FY26. So 2 weeks ago, we talked about these. It was the end of a long meeting. So I think we had everyone kind of share their top 2 goals. And so I think tonight, we can have a little bit more time for discussion. And I think, my first question, Elaine, typically when we've done goals in the past, and we didn't do them last year, is there a number we should be settling on? What's kind of our...
I'd say the number has to be manageable, what you can reasonably be worked on during the course of the year. So, it may be 3 to 5.
Okay, I think 3 to 5 is fair. Amy stepped out, so we can talk in a minute. But Brian, we were just saying, we did the goals. We all listed our top 2, and so we're going to kind of settle on 3 to 5 so that it's a manageable list.
Yeah, mine could be combined into one for sure.
I think 3 to 5 sounds reasonable.
All right, I got to find where I wrote down kind of everyone's.
It's in the packet.
Yeah.
I'm there as well. I think I would just like to have a conversation supplemental to what are the goals of the board for what are the goals of us as an individual. One of the things I frequently get asked in town, and especially during the campaign, was essentially like, how do I know if the board has been successful, and how do I know that you're doing the things that you said you would? If you just tell me what you want to be graded on. I do think some of this is incumbent on us to give the town criteria to evaluate our performance in the exact same way that we're going to evaluate the performance of the leaders who report to us.
So I'm just trying to, I think I understand what you're looking for, Matt. I'm just not sure how to do that, like inside the scope of the board. Like this is the board's goals. I think you're referring to individual goals, right? I don't know.
Yeah, this is me saying I'm comfortable having a generic discussion about what are the board's goals, and I am asking essentially for a future agenda item such that each of us states what our individual pursuits and goals are for the year. It is a frequent point of feedback, and I think it is a diligence we can do to the community to talk about both what we are doing as a collective and what we as individuals are doing to advance town interest as well. They're mutually exclusive.
Okay, all right, gotcha. So future agenda item, but you're in agreement with the board's overall goals of 3 to 5 tonight?
Yep, and I like where Brian's head is at in terms of like fiscal discipline, et cetera.
Yeah, I think, if we look back, and my packet's not loading now, but I think there was a lot of overlapping goals, right? I think my top one was water. I wasn't alone. I think, was it Shidul that you had water as well?
Strategic plan. And,
Amy just stepped back in. Amy, so we're going to settle on about 3 to 5, so it's a manageable list. And my packet's not loading now. So if someone would like to read through, what, the 10 top choices were, we have some overlap. That should help narrow down the list, and then we can discuss.
Which page is that?
Page 44.
So one more. Yeah. Oh, there it is. Is that?
But I think it has.
It has a matrix, right?
You can skip number 1 for me, which was develop a standardized basis and formula for setting water rates. I'll continue to pursue that as my individual goal. I would like to suggest, however, that number 2 is considered as a board goal, which was suggesting an events committee for town-held and sponsored events. That was around the discussion of like the Horribles parade, who should be getting licensure, et cetera. Number 3 was clean water as a human right / clean water. 4 was a strategic plan for the town. And as Brian noted, 5 and 6 are kind of a blur in a good way, which is ensure a balanced budget and capital plan without override, balance finances to minimize tax impacts.
Yeah. Through the chair, looking at these, I think we already see some synergy and consolidation opportunities.
Yep.
So we may discuss that, and I see it consolidating to like 4, 2 are budget and tax related combined, and 2 are water related, but open for discussion.
Yeah, so Matt, can you reiterate, you said you had fine taking 1 as an individual. I'm looking at the first 2.
Yeah, but I'd like to at least challenge is the wrong word. Let's have a collaborative discussion around number 2. This was a pain point for us with the licensing around the Horribles parade, but it's become clear just in general that there's some ambiguity in the volunteer nature of work that's done in town. Events like Touch a Truck, Polyarts, these are all taking place largely using some town infrastructure, but they're relying on the good nature and goodwill of volunteers and volunteer groups. I think a lot of the community at large thinks that those are funded by the town. The reality is they're not. We probably need a process to start vetting and better understanding how some of these events come together, how they're approved, and if we're going to start potentially covering them under the town umbrella, we should be talking about funding them with town finances so we can have a more clear-eyed conversation as part of the budgetary process, what it looks like to have these sorts of events in the community. I just want to standardize it.
So myself, I don't want to stop. I think a lot of groups in town, I'm not interested in this goal for the group because so many groups in town already do their own event. They have their own process. They're funding it. I don't want us to become like supervising all the different events in town that already have sponsors. So I'm not sure I'm quite on board with this.
To the chair, I was thinking the same. I would echo that cultural committee has their own event set, planning to...
The Library Foundation does
all that. We don't need to be on the way for, and so does Park and Rec and others. We don't need to be on the way for all of those. And I think for the particular events that were in question, we already had added it to our agenda. I believe Amy mentioned it. And we want to discuss it as a special topic, that how are we going to do the celebration for 4th of July next year. And I'd be very supportive of doing something collaboratively from the town and from through our leadership as needed. I'm not sure if that is something we need as a goal per se. That's my opinion, but open to discuss as well.
Brian?
I think there's a lot of entities with a lot of different things going on in town, and we are not the all-knowing, all-powerful entity or board itself. There's others that have elected leaders that make their own decisions, and we shouldn't be speaking on their behalf, in my view. So, but in terms of goals overall for the board, which is the real question here, I think the financial responsibility and fiscal conservative approach some wording of that nature makes sense. I think safe water and actions to ensure safe water for the future makes sense. I think the third goal specific and around the charter review, that is a very big lift for the town, for this team, and for the board if we're really involved in it. That would be a third one that I would think we could bring these three together. There's 3 of the 5 maybe.
Yeah.
That would be my suggestion.
Okay.
Wait, for the charter review, would that replace the strategic plan one? Or that in addition to?
Oh, right now we have the strategic plan, but charter review is definitely
Yeah, I think
not a big item.
you know, I think they're the same. They're similar in what they would do. So maybe you kind of blend them together and support both the strategic planning as well as the charter review process, because they're kind of going to go hand in hand.
Add to the same
Like that, yeah.
call.
They do, but I'm cautious that we're essentially taking a goal to do something that we are required to do.
Yeah.
Sort of thing I get in trouble with in my management, in my corporate world, because they tell me I'm double dipping.
Bad thing. If the, resources and the actions aligned, but open for.
That's fine. I suppose I'm just pushing for more audacious goals than you all are.
Understood, man.
I mean, I was looking at it from the standpoint of, we just talked about, it's going to be an intense process with the charter review. We're all locked into that. The town is locked into that process. From a goal standpoint, I don't think it needs to be added. I think we've got some good ones. From the events thing, I think it would be hard to start getting the government involved in every event. I think the 4th of July was a unique one. And I think that deserves, a special focus, to bring the town together. So, and that's a future agenda item. So I'm not sure that it needs a goal, but the rest, I look at number 1, it ties into number 3, right? A standardized approach for water and sewer rates. I think that can be combined. And then, you agree?
Yep.
So that would leave us with here.
And also, if you look at number 5 and 6, we can create a verbiage and set of metrics to go together as well. Ensure balanced budget and capital plan without need for overrides, and balanced finances to minimize taxing.
Yeah, so that would give us 3. 3, I would consider high priority items for the town and for the board to focus on.
So the 2 water items combined, strategic plan with the big thing this year, which will be the charter review.
Right, so 1, 3, 5, 6, and then 4. All this combined, we're looking at 3 now.
Yeah.
So 5 and 6 combined,
1 and 3 combined.
1 and 3 combined, and then add charter review to number 4.
I'm fine either way. I think charter review already is an action plan.
Yeah.
We can add it to the strategic
Yeah,
plan.
I disagreed with it, but if 3 of you
No.
thought it was appropriate,
I was just thinking, it's not a goal every year, but every 10 years, like it is something we have to do, yeah.
I could be fine with it as well. I made the point that it's double dipping, but it is not like anathema to me. It is certainly relevant, and it is a significant activity that we're going to undertake.
Yeah, and it wouldn't hurt because I think, to Brian's point, they kind of goes hand in hand in many ways.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're going to go through the strategic plan for the town and not address it to some degrees, right? So like calling it out as a goal, I don't feel strongly. If we can either call it out, we don't call it out. I don't think it changes our goals and the approach that it seems like we're all in agreement on otherwise.
I'm comfortable noting it as Amy has suggested. We're going to do the work, and it is significant, and I appreciate her perspective that this is a once-in-a-decade activity. It is a fair reflection of the priority we're going to put on it.
Okay, so the recommendation would be to combine 1 and 3 for an overall water goal that looks at also a strategic, basis for setting the water and sewer rates.
Because water is not free, that's for sure.
Correct. 4 would be expanded upon with, the language around the charter review. And then 5 and 6 would be combined, balanced budget, conservative capital approach that minimizes tax impacts.
I like it.
Did we need, I don't think we needed a motion for this one, correct? We just needed to kind of
We need to
Do we
properly
vote on it, or
document
we bring it back next time?
You can vote, or it just could be by consensus, that's fine. We can write them up for the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
We could affirm them. Okay.
Yeah.
That would be good.
All right, Matt, did you hear that? We're going to write them up. We'll, look for a motion next time, but I think we're all in agreement.
Yep, I'm in alignment as well. I just wanted to make a last point on item number 2 around the events committee. I'm fine letting the ball go on this one, but I think it's fair to highlight in the 5 or so months that I've been on the board, my tenure has essentially been defined by systems that were supposed to be in place, processes that were supposed to be in place, and the way those were supposed to work. We've had a lot of supposed tos. They haven't worked the way they're supposed to. I agree that the 4th of July is unique. There will be other supposed tos. I'm just so desperate to encourage us to not keep taking them as they come, but to be proactive about them. I don't have to die on this hill, but I really do want to start challenging us to think more proactively as a board.
I don't think you're dying on the hill. My only feedback would be that, when you talk, like the width of which you're talking about subjects, that's why we have future agenda items. We've obviously been very open to board members putting them on. So I think we individually can work on that. I don't know if collectively, how we can do that efficiently.
We're good.
Okay. All right, then we are good. We move on to the town manager's report.
Okay. For the Main Street Corridor Project update, Verizon is on track to complete their work by the end of October. Verizon will be able to remove the remaining pole causing a west end conflict next week. Amarillo will be mobilizing next week and start working on the curb and sidewalk on the west end. Amarillo's pavers are scheduled for the end of October to pave the top layer on the west end. Other work, such as some manholes and curbing, is being discussed for this year. Landscaping is scheduled to begin around October 20th, and the banner pole in front of Town Hall will be placed once wires are removed. That's the update as of today, so that's new information.
That's great. Thank you for the progress on that.
And then for the Center School project update, David Del Torio, our Town Engineer Facilities Director, is going to be the owner's representative for the design portion of that project. There's been considerable coordination between town staff, legal counsel, and the Permanent Building Committee and the CPC on this project. Proposals were evaluated in August, and GRLA has been tentatively selected as the most advantageous based on the outlined criteria for the design services. The final contract details are being negotiated. Expect that contract to be executed shortly. A contract for an existing conditions survey has been awarded to J.D. Marquardt and Associates, and an RFP for the lease of Center School is scheduled to be available tomorrow. Okay, so that project is underway.
So at which, can you just share at what point, like, what are the future steps in this? Because it's an extended RFP process, right? I think one of the steps is selecting a,
First, and then now.
So the designer consultant has been selected.
Yep.
And that will begin designing the building project.
Correct, but I thought as part of this, did I miss, did we already select the public-private partnership?
So the public-private partnership, that's the RFP that goes out tomorrow.
Okay. Just making sure, yeah.
So it's a two-step process.
Okay.
All right,
So
thank you.
the design has been selected.
Design
the
is
partnership.
done, and lease comes next.
Okay, so that will be out.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, that was confusing.
Yep.
And thanks to Lance for all his work on these. An update on the Inspector General letter, September 22nd, and the action items there that are in there. The town received a letter from the Office of the Inspector General on September 22nd with findings relative to the actions of a former Parks and Recreation Director between 2019 and 2023 regarding noncompliance with public procurement laws, internal controls relating to concession stand operations, and state and town policies on cash handling. Parks and Rec Director reports to the Parks and Recreation Commission, an independently elected board, and the OIG recommended that the town take several actions, some of them within 30 days, some within 60 days, and some long-term. And so we have a town team that's working on executing all of those. And so I won't go through them all, but a meeting with the Parks and Recreation Commission will hopefully be scheduled on Friday. We'll review the draft MOU that the OIG had outlined. Other things that we're working on is there's updating our cash handling policy, which is about a year old. It's good to review it every year anyway, so that's great. And then some of number 2 in their item about all of our contracts and agreements in writing is already our current practice. So we'll be working off this list and meeting those timelines that are in the letter, meeting or exceeding them. And so, it's important to restore trust in what we do and trust in Parks and Recreation Commission and what they offer. So we're really working to make everything right. And then finally,
Sorry. I have absolutely have questions there. So through the chair, Elaine, I wanted to ask, one of the recommendations that is in that report, or one of the items of concern that was noted, was the reporting structure of the finances such that Parks and Rec did not report to the Select Board and that the authorizations were done by the Parks and Rec Committee. Without giving my own commentary on that and deferring to what was in the OIG report, I wanted to ask if you were concerned that there are other departments in town, notably the library, which we are in the process of pushing to a similar model. Given that we have just had a breakdown of this nature highlighted by the state, do you have future concerns about continuing to maintain this model for Parks and Rec as well as other departments in the town?
well, that's something that could be considered as part of the charter review, because it's the charter that outlines that. But in any event, number 6.
I know I'm not in the room. I'm not entirely sure why that's funny. This is a pretty significant issue in which the state OIG has given us a report of significant mismanagement. I'm asking a question about the overall application and risk associated with the departments. I don't exactly think a laughing response is appropriate. Did I miss something virtually?
I was going to say that number 6 of that letter requires or requests us to also implement MOUs with these other boards, which I will do.
I would appreciate understanding what, if any, vulnerabilities you see as you go through that process, and whether or not we will be doing retrospective audits, given that we have once again discovered fire where the fire was suggesting there was fire.
Is there a question?
Yes, I'm asking if we will be doing an audit of the other departments which are similarly structured to Parks and Rec, given that we have been shown that there was inadequate or inaccurate oversight during the period. Why would I believe this is isolated purely to Parks and Rec without confirming that for myself?
We have no concerns with the other departments. They do not operate the types of facilities that Parks and Rec does, and each of those other boards are very different in what they do.
Pardon my naivete, but prior to you requesting this report from the OIG, did you have concerns about Parks and Rec? That is my concern.
I certainly knew about what is at issue here in this letter.
My point is that there was a period of time in which you were not aware of what was going on at Parks and Rec that ultimately led to this. That is not me stating you were accountable. That is me stating there was a period of time in which the activities of the department were unknown and caused this. I think it's very reasonable for me to be asking if this has occurred in other parts of town, and I'm not entirely sure why I'm being poo-pooed for doing so.
Through the chair, I just want to add, I hear Mr. Kisner's concern. I would like to hear, are you proposing something, Matt, that is not included in the process?
I'm essentially asking for a similar report and audit as was done by OIG for the other departments that are similarly structured, given that we have been provided information to suggest that we did not have adequate oversight.
Good part. So following up on that, Elaine, is there any other department that has the same structure and process that are similar, so to Mr. Kisner's point, could have the similar fallacy or vulnerability that we should look at?
The Board of Health.
Board of Health. So is that something that we can look at, or what do you suggest?
But I think it's part of the charter review, because that's how it's written in the charter, so, yeah.
That's correct.
Good point, yeah. Actually, charter review would trigger a lot of new thoughts from that, so
yeah.
This is a good time to bring this up, but let's wait for the right time and process.
But just to close out his question, so do you think it's reasonable to do a review of the Board of Health now to just
We're asking two different questions. One is the process moving forward.
Hold on, Matt.
What happened
Hold on.
previously.
Is it the suggestion that we investigate the Board of Health's operations for potential violations of town and state policy?
I'm trying to ascertain, while I am aware that information was provided to you that led to the OIG investigation into Parks and Rec, given that deficiencies in the structure and the oversight were reported to us, I'm not entirely sure why we wouldn't do our due diligence here. That is not in any way, shape, or form meant to be a criticism of Mr. McAuliffe or the Department of Health, the Board of Health, or the oversight they have provided. This is me doing my diligence when I am confronted with a significant financial breakdown in the town with which I am charged stewarding.
Wouldn't it make sense for the Board of Health, the duly elected members of the Board of Health, to commission some kind of investigation if that's what they wanted to do?
They could.
Through the chair.
We should suggest that to them and see what they want to do. I mean, they're colleagues elected just like we are, so let's see what they think.
And I'm fine with that, Brian. I just want to make sure we're taking an action here. I am not of the opinion it has to be us personally.
I think we have to defer to them first and foremost. I mean, we're almost suggesting something's going on, right? So we don't want to do that. Let's just ask them what they think. And I think the same would apply to what other boards are duly elected.
Well, the Select Board, the School Committee,
Yeah.
The school committee.
Parks and Rec, Housing Authority.
Library.
Library Trustee.
Well,
And through the chair, I think Mr. Hurd made a very good point. Do we trigger investigation just because, or because there are ground for investigation or complaint that we haven't addressed? That is the question. I think the process due diligence makes sense, but individual investigation, even though this was an unfortunate as well as unacceptable event or incident, I don't know if that warrants investigation on all similar mechanisms.
There was
Could I suggest it be a future agenda item to discuss if any other audits are needed, maybe at this time?
And there was an individual who did not comply with the regulations.
And I guess I don't know which other departments handle cash. I think probably most departments don't handle cash through POs and.
Yeah, we do know which ones handle cash.
And just to understand, do you think it was a personnel issue or it was a process issue?
I think it's as outlined in the letter. The person did not follow the law.
And my understanding is this process is not uncommon in town administration in certain areas.
No, it's not to be tolerated.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
And then finally, town department position vacancies. There are a couple of vacancies that I'm asking the board to approve the posting of. The first is the benefits administrator in the HR department, the assistant treasurer collector in finance department, and a police officer position, which are or will become vacant.
And so you support all these and see them inside the operating budget posts?
All of these are budgeted.
Okay. Any questions from the board? We need a motion on this one.
Hold on. Is the police position a new position or is it a backfill of desired attrition?
There was a resignation.
Thank you.
I move to authorize the posting of the benefits administrator, police officer, and the assistant treasurer collector positions.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second, so we'll go roll call. Brian?
Brian Hurd, yes.
Shahidul Manan, yes.
Vivi Rotabush, yes.
Matt?
Matt Kisner, yes.
Joe Clark, yes. All right, that is unanimous. All right, liaison reports. Amy, would you like to start?
I think the only one, I jotted it down, I have is that CPC is having a grand opening for the skate park on October 17th at 3 p.m., and I will not be able to go, but if anyone else is available, it would be good to see. It was a CPC project that's now built.
What date did you say?
October 17th at
Is that a
3?
Friday?
I think so.
Is it skate park, is it?
Yeah, a skate park at EMC Park, 3 p.m.
Try to.
So I'm not home from work at that hour.
I can usually make that.
I'll try to make it.
Okay.
It's a Friday.
Nothing else from me.
Shahidul?
Nothing else for me.
Brian?
Nothing at this time.
Matt?
Yeah, quickly, the library makerspace opened on Monday, so if you want to see me struggle to learn how to sew a button and many others like me try to process basic life skills, come down to the library makerspace. I think it's a great spot for everybody to pick up a new skill, new and old, and I really appreciate that we are iterating and finding ways to make that space more accessible. Otherwise, on the DPW, I do just want to quickly note that while we are transitioning into the fall, and it's hilarious to say this, we are still in a significant drought condition and are encouraging residents to conserve water as able. Last but not least, because I don't know that we'll have another meeting beforehand, Fire Department has an open house scheduled for October 19th that the DPW will also be attending. We encourage everybody to come, not the least of which because we'll be supporting the Adopt a Fire Hydrant program. I hope some of you have seen this online, but there is a movement to go around and beautify the fire hydrants in our town and communities just like ours, so we hope to see you there.
Thank you, Matt. I have nothing else, so I think leaves us with future agenda items. I think we talked about a few tonight. I know, Amy, you just said discussing audits in other departments. Did you want to?
Oh, I think that was, if Matt was open to that idea, I don't know.
So we just talked about this. Is that going to be a future agenda item? Or we also discussed having those boards start there. So.
Can I generalize it, Joe? Maybe I would be very comfortable as the person who's pushing this if Ms. Lazarus would essentially bring us back a message from the relevant boards, just confirming they've done a review based on the OIG report, and they don't have any immediate cause for concern with immediate retrospective spending or existing procedures. That's at least good enough that the governing bodies have come in and say, we look backwards, we're ready to move forward with you, and we can say we did our diligence to check.
Okay.
I had a follow-up question quickly, Elaine. For my understanding, how do we do our internal audits usually? Is there a regular process, periodic, or?
As far as a financial audit?
Or financial audit?
We have an annual audit.
Annual audit, right? And would that cover these activities, or it would need to be more?
Covers some things. As you say, there's a financial audit, and then there's other audits of processes and procurement. So we do have a procurement and grants manager that is doing a great job in making sure that everyone works with her on their procurement and make sure everyone complies with the procurement law,
Thank you.
regardless of what department they're in.
Okay. I felt like there was an additional future item discussed tonight. Did you have a separate one?
Go ahead. It's the process one.
So that's already on for the Vic license process. I think that's coming on our next meeting.
That's great. So the next October meeting?
Correct. I believe it's the 21st.
Okay.
I'm just trying to think. I thought there was one other new item discussed earlier tonight. If anyone. Okay.
So Joe, during budget, I had challenged a little bit around level funding and wanting to see what such a process would look like from the other departments, whether you want to hear that as a future action or it was just in the context of the budget discussion. I think it's meaningful that the Chair of Appropriations and myself were both making that message. I'd love to see us at least take an evaluation style action, even if it doesn't change what we do this year.
Okay. So, and that was, level funded evaluation versus level services.
I like the topic. I'm just thinking, wouldn't that be covered with next
during the budget
discussion session?
Yeah.
That's why I asked. I'm essentially asking if it requires blowout, given that it was an action we were looking for them to take. I think we're more than welcome to discuss it at the next meeting, but if we want there to be numbers and meaning behind it, we need to give the individuals involved time to do the work.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, one thing I wanted to point out, we do have a big big queue of topics. Do we need to clean up a little bit or maybe prioritize at some point?
I think we've got a couple of these things are coming up on our, I know we're prioritizing for our next meeting, so let's clean up next meeting.
And I think you can remove resident sand pile, right? We talked about that tonight.
Yep. Okay. So then we'll go through a thorough review, close out items for that one in 2 weeks. So with that, we would I would look to move to executive session. And under that, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Purpose 3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation, Costa Brothers Masonry, Inc. versus SureTech Insurance Company, DBA Markel Surety, and others, Middlesex Superior Court, number 2281CV03297. Also pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Purpose 6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate, land at Assessor's Map R16-20-0 and 280 Cedar Street. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Purpose 3, to consider strategy with respect to negotiations with the dispatch union. To approve executive session minutes, to allow Elaine Lazarus, Lance Del Priore, Brian Bertram, and Anthony Riley to participate in an executive session, and to not to convene an open session after the conclusion of the executive session.
So moved.
We've got a motion.
Second.
And a second, so it'll be roll call. Matt?
Matt Kisner, yes.
Amy?
Amy Ritterbusch, yes?
Shahidul Manan, yes?
Brian Hur, yes?
Joe Clark, yes. All right, thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Okay, good night.